Hello, gamers from around the world. This is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, and I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the World of Gaming. And it is an absolute pleasure to have my co-host back, all the way back from the Netherlands. Wandering Dutchman, how have you been?
Yes, I'm good. I'm very good. I'm glad to be back. Of course, I do hate missing shows, whether it be our show here or midweek mix-up. I hate doing it. So, and of course, we had a break this week from midweek mix-up, mainly because obviously I've been on holiday and I have absolutely no idea what's going on. So, so I've took like yesterday to kind of reacclimatize to the gaming news and what's been happening and things like that. So of course, fresh and ready to talk about it on today's episode. So looking forward to jumping back into it. Definitely.
Yeah, man. No, we missed you last week. I mean, we had some awesome guests last week to fill in the shoes, but no one really can fill in the Wandering Dutch shoes. So this spot here, it just belongs to you. So glad you are back. But let me also welcome everyone in the chat here. Great to see you guys. We have a lot to talk here today. And a big shout out, of course, to everyone who listens after the show, either here on YouTube or, of course, on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast. And I would kindly remind everyone, if you do listen to the show on the podcast services, we would definitely appreciate you guys leaving us a 5-star review. Would really appreciate that. Other than that, guys, there's a lot to talk about. Like Dutch said, and that's actually why we are like 7 minutes late or so. Today was the Nacon event, and I had to work. I did not watch it, but he had told me you have to watch at least 2 trailers so that we can talk about it. So I had to watch the Robocop trailer, and I had to watch the Gollum trailer, and we will definitely discuss that. But of course, we will also talk about all the things that happened in gaming this week. And there happened quite a few things. Suicide Squad just the news broke, and we'll discuss it. We will get new Xbox hardware, but not in the form that you expect. So we will talk, of course, about all the latest in the ABK drama. And, of course, the Starfield date. We finally got the date, and I know Pong. I don't know if he's in the chat here. He's probably still dealing with that release date, and we will discuss everything around that. We have some E3 news. We have some Halo news and Joe State news and a lot more. So we will discuss everything. But first, we need to talk, of course, about the games of the week. So I just said to Dutch, when it's just the two of us, so it's easy to do the jingle. So we have to talk about, of course, the games of the week. But first, I need to shout out the first 2 chats that came in. The first super chat comes in from Drawn TJ, our good and generous friend. He says, "Hi, Boxenberger and Dutch. The Bacon event." Oh man, now I'm starring. I think he's referring, of course, to the Nacon event. Had no test drive to show, probably going to be delayed again. Dutch, you had the chance to watch it.
That's a good point, actually. It's a good point. I was looking forward to seeing what Solar Crown was about. Yeah. Completely, to be honest, with everything that's coming out, I keep forgetting that it's coming out, and I have mentioned it on a few of my lists as well and even my video, the biggest games coming out in 2023. I did have Solar Crown there, but yeah, it has been missing.
It has.
Strange one. I'm still confident in the game itself, though. The IP's pretty decent. The previous iterations of Test Drive have been fantastic. So I'm not really concerned in the game going forward. And of course, delays are always good, in my opinion, if it means it's going to benefit us.
Oh, yeah.
If it's delayed for certain other reasons, that people aren't happy about. Not so much the quality of the game, but maybe the content of the game. That's a different story entirely.
Yeah, no. Facts, man, facts. Yeah. So we shall see if we get Solar Crown a little later this year. And if we at least get to see it. And now I messed up our cameras. Hang on, should be back. There we go. Because actually I messed up the cameras because I wanted to add our newest channel member. Shout out to Ballantone, who just became a channel member. Thank you, man, so much for the support. Truly appreciate it. Now you got access, of course, to all the custom badges and emojis here and early access to the videos. So super appreciate the support, man. But Dutch, and of course, everyone here in the chat, tell us, what have you guys been playing? And Dutch, what kept you busy this week?
Yeah, so when I got back, I jumped back onto City Skylines. It's been a long time since I've played it, and
how did that happen?
Yeah. So
how do you play City Skylines in March of 23? I want to know that story. What?
Yes. So for those who didn't know, they brought out a Xbox Series X and S version of City Skylines, the definitive edition, and it went straight into Game Pass like the last month, and I wasn't aware of it until quite late on. So I jumped into City Skylines, the definitive Series X and S edition. When I originally played it, there was a lot of performance issues because it wasn't optimized at all. And it struggled quite a bit, especially when you start getting very dense cities with a lot going on. So I jumped back on it again, spent about 5 hours, and then all of a sudden my entire city become violently ill and everyone was dying. So even though like water mains and everything were perfect, like it didn't show any kind of degradation of the sewerage system or anything. Everything said it was fine, but everyone was getting severely ill, so I had no idea how to fix it and come off it. So, so aside from kind of wiping out an entire city, I've also tried Wolong, and by God, that game is frustrating. The parry system does not work properly. Now, I'm not the best of players when it comes to Elden Rings or Souls or Sekiros or anything like that, but the parry system on Wolong is hit or miss. Sometimes it works fine, and you can get several parries off the trot. And other times you've got all day to think about the parry that is coming on. You can literally see it happening for ages, and you do the parry, and it doesn't work, and then you get hit 4 times. So I don't know whether or not, and again, I had a patch for today, so I don't know whether or not that might have resolved an issue there with some of the parry timing, but that's been my only issue with the game so far. Aside from that, it seems like a good game once I get the parry down and once that's resolved. Then I think I'd happily kind of play through the rest of it, but it's nowhere near as hard as your Elden Rings or your Dark Souls or anything like that.
Want to hear a sad story? Yesterday I wanted to play Wolong. I had to work long, then I had to, of course, also take a little care of the kids, took them to bed, and it was around 9 p.m. my time. I sat down on the couch right behind me. I have a couch here. That's my gaming TV there, and I sat down, turned on Wolong, and during the intro I fell asleep. And that's not because it's boring or anything. Not saying that. I was just so fucking tired. So I fell asleep. Woke up at like 1 a.m. Went upstairs and just continued sleeping. So I did not have the chance to try out Wolong yet.
But yeah, other than that, that's been it. That's all I've had a chance to play really since I've been back. So. What about yourself, Boxy? What have you been playing?
Oh, I've been playing quite a few different games this week. But first I want to, because you mentioned City Skylines, Drawn TJ sends in $5, and he also plays that. He says, I made a big city, then I had them try to survive a tsunami. Yeah, man, that's the crazy stuff you can do in City Skylines. And wasn't it just this week when they announced, or was it last week when they announced City Skylines 2 still supposed to come?
It was this week, I think. I think that was when I got back. Tuesday.
Yeah, definitely. Just a few days ago, City Skylines 2 coming supposedly this year, and it's gonna be massive, man. They're gonna increase tile size significantly. Was way above 100 tiles now. Can't remember.
Which is insane. The current one's only 25 tiles, I think.
Yeah.
Which is also massive.
Massive. Yeah. It's huge. No doubt. Yeah, so what have I been playing? So I finished my 5th entire playthrough of The Witcher 3, including all DLC. So I finished the Blood and Wine DLC. So I'm gonna just put up some gameplay from Witcher 3 while we talk about it. Still love that game. It's like I think it's just probably the best game ever made. It's phenomenal. Still an easy 10 out of 10. And yeah, I got a great ending. An ending I haven't had before. So usually in 3 of my playthroughs, I always went with Triss. And then I did my 4th playthrough, and I wanted to see what it's like to date Jen or Jennifer, and then I wasn't able to turn Triss down, so I had an ending where I tried to do them both, and that ending, by the way, is hilarious. Highly recommend that. So this time I did it. I said no to Triss. Played through the entire game choosing Yen, and I got that ending for the first time, so was interesting to see. Other than that, of course, a little H4. Not gonna bore everyone because I did not perform very well this week, honestly. I lost so many matches that I dropped down to gold 3, so I have to get back to platinum then. But then I started, and that we need to talk about this. Metroid Prime Remaster. It arrived, and I played it, and played it quite a lot, and I freaking love it, man. It's like they didn't usually. Nintendo makes a big buzz around when they try to release the same game over and over and over to you again without them doing any work. And with this one, I feel like they haven't really talked about how much work they actually did, because it's phenomenal. They upgraded the texture quality, the lighting quality, the sound is phenomenal, man. It's amazing. It runs butter smooth at 60. For a Switch game, it even looks sharp on my 4K OLED. Usually, if you play a Mario Odyssey or so, and it's upscaled, it just gets blurry because it renders at sub 1080p resolution. So, but this one, it looks crisp on the 4K. It runs butter smooth, and it's still an incredibly good game. It's this and Super Metroid gotta be the best Metroids so far, and they did a phenomenal job, man. So I don't know if Metroid Prime is something for you. Did you intend to get it, or?
Not immediately, but it's definitely something that I like the look of. So at some point in the future, I'll pick it up. I'll probably pick it up physically because it will be cheaper.
Yep. I bought it physically as well.
Yeah. But yeah, in the future, I'll definitely pick it up in the future. It certainly looks very interesting, and of course, with it being a an exclusive, that's pretty much all I play on Nintendo anyway. I've got a couple of games on there that I have that aren't. So I've got The Witcher on Switch. I've got Hellblade on Switch. I've got some games like that. I think
How
I've
is
got
Hellblade on the Switch?
Oh, it's awesome. First Hellblade on Switch is absolutely awesome. Yeah, looks and performs very well. So I would recommend it if you don't have it and you want to play through it again. Yeah, it works very, very well.
Okay.
Minecraft Dungeons I've got on there as well, because that's an easy pick up and play game on Switch. Yeah. Things like that. But the vast majority are all kind of exclusive games. So of course,
for the most part,
and your Marios and
yeah. Same here. I have The Witcher. I have of course Skyrim and Diablo on the Switch. I do have like a couple of smaller ones. I have Hollow Knight, for instance. I don't know, a few smaller indies that I bought digitally, but for the most part, it's exclusive. It's exclusive on the Switch, and honestly, Metroid Prime has to be one of the best games you can play right now on the Switch. It's absolutely phenomenal. I love the atmosphere, man. It's just the level design in Metroid Prime is so good. It just is. And it's also like it is not difficult game per se, not like your Elden Rings or whatever, but it feels like challenging enough for you to stay engaged, and it's just great. So definitely a recommendation from my side. Let me see what people in the chat have been playing. Let me see. Wola, Tim the Sorcerer is playing Wolong and Merchant Blade. I have no idea what Merchant Blade is. Do you?
Nope. That's not one that rings a bell with me.
Not at all.
You got a PC game, maybe?
Could be. Crispy Rambo is playing Grounded right now. Fantastic game, man. Fantastic game. Siki is playing Fortnite, Rocket League, and Mount and Blade. What else? Caroline Gamer 28 says, I've been playing Wolong, Horizon, Gotham Knights, Hi-Fi Rush, High on Life, and Warhammer Dark Tide. Man, that is quite something. Quite a lot. We have Dustin Lambert playing Forza Horizon 5. What else? Man, the chat is on fire again. The chat is on fire. Yeah, a lot of good games there. Did I miss someone? I hope not. Ballantone plays Wolong, Soul Hackers, and Fallout 1. Fallout 1? I have not seen that in the chat. And the Fifth Horseman says it is Mount and Blade, and it is probably a typo. Yeah.
Mount
and
Blade,
our good friend.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I have heard of that. So, Hertog Vin, in our pineapple lover, like his bed sheets must be covered all in pineapples. So he, and pizzas, of course. So he's playing Ghost of Tsushima, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and now Uncharted. So you're rocking your PS5, man. Good on you. Let me also catch up on the super chats, man. Drawn TJ sends in generous $10 and says, Boxy, you are slipping. Lol. Fell asleep on Xbox and losing Age of Empires 4 matches. Yeah, man, you had to rub it in my face. But I deserve that. I deserve it. What is going on, bud? By the way, Hellblade 2 is going to be at The Witcher. And he follows up with the second $2 super chat. It says, typo going to be better. Yeah, man, Hellblade 2, I've said that before, it will set new standards. I truly believe that. What they are trying to do with Hellblade 2, we gonna enjoy that one. Then we have Fantoser, who is a channel member for 7 months. Super appreciate the ongoing support, man. and he's also just become a mod in the channel here and tries to keep the chat in the world of gaming clean. So double shout out to you, man. He says totally agree.
He's only got Vin to time out. He's fine.
Yeah.
Vin's the only one you need to worry about.
You don't need exactly. I wanted to say that, man. We rarely have like the trolls come in here. It's really like a safe street. We all tolerate different opinions, but I've very, very rarely see the trolls come in here and attack others on like a personal level. We might all disagree. Dutch and we all disagree all the time. That's fine. That's what strikes up great conversations. But if someone like, I don't know, gets personal, or I don't know, brings in something like racism, sexism, something like that, Phantosir and all the other mods that help us here, like Paul, AFC, to keep the streets clean. I've said it to all of them. You never even have to ask myself. Just hit the ban button and those idiots are gone. This is a safe space for everyone, and I appreciate all the mods. I do not shout them out enough to keep the chat here to what it is, and it is a high quality community we got here, Dutch. So
another one actually from Tim the Sorcerer in chat, which reminded me that I have actually played that this week, because I thought I will try and see if there's any like a new one, new Vampire Survivor-esque game to play. That was Merge and Blade, which is another kind of automatic battle RPG game. It's quite interesting. Nice. It's a bit of a strange puzzler. You've got to kind of match them, and then when you match enough guys, it then levels them up into a stronger unit. And then you kind of get, after the battles, you get coins, and then you can unlock higher units and so on and so forth. And you've got to kind of work your way through all the different levels. So it's quite interesting. It's just a quite quick and easy game to jump into through Game Pass. If you've got like a bit of time to spare and you don't really have the mindset to jump into anything that requires brains, Merge and Blade is the one for you. So it's another kind of Vampire Survivor-esque game.
Nice. I've not heard of it, but it sounds like I need to check it out, man. It sounds like I need to check it out. Actually, I was not even wasn't even able to read the super chat from Fanto. So he actually said, totally agree. I've fallen in love with Metroid Prime all over again. He dipped also into Vice City 2. Good, man. Yeah. Again, it's a phenomenal game. Glad you enjoyed as well, Phantosir. And now I feel bad and terrible because I did not shout out all the mods. Yeah, we have also Jay here in the chat, who's doing a phenomenal job from day one. We have Gracie Louis, who is also a mod. Sorry. So we have man, a great community here and great mods. Truly appreciate you all. But with that being said, let us move to the news. All right, so the jingles are back, man. The jingles are back.
Jingles are back.
Jingles. Good. What happened this week? A lot has happened this week, and there's a lot to discuss. But a couple of news just broke today, so I would like to open with those. The Nacon event happened earlier. You had the chance to actually watch the entire thing. Unfortunately, I did not. I only had the chance to watch like the two highlights you pointed out for me, and that was, of course, Gollum and Robocop. So highlights is probably, I don't know if it's the right word. Honestly, let's start to talk about Gollum. We knew that it's not like this high AAA big budget Lord of the Rings kind of game. Definitely not. But I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. I was expecting like a thief-like game, stealth game, but it kind of just looks boring. It looks like how did you describe it at the before the show? You had a great way to describe it. A game that
so
looks
to me, it looks like a game that was late 360, beginning of Xbox One.
Exactly. Yeah. So I fully agree with that. Like the animations look really outdated. Textures look outdated. I don't know. It didn't do anything. But what do you think?
Yeah, so it's like I say, the only thing that it had over the latter game, which we'll also talk about, was that the story and the acting seemed to be relatively interesting. But aside from that, from a technical standpoint and from a graphical standpoint, it already looks outdated before it's even released. I can't. It's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it's like even from initial viewing points from when they announced it to now, it looks literally nothing like what they originally envisioned. It looks like it's had a severe kind of pullback in kind of their vision for this game, and they've reduced the output significantly. It does, and of course, if you have a watch of the trailer, Gollum does very much look like a end of 360 gen, beginning of Xbox One gen game.
Yeah.
Like the character models, the texture qualities, everything that goes along with it. It just looks a little bit clunky and just outdated, which is unfortunate. But I never had a good feeling about the game from the off. I don't know, and it sounds really strange, but Gollum is not one of the characters in the entirety of the Lord of the Rings universe that somebody would think about making a video game about, and the fans wouldn't really want a Gollum game either. Like, out of every character in the Lord of the Rings universe, Gollum is the perspective. I understand they're probably trying to be different and think, what it is, we've never had Gollum's perspective,
Yeah.
so we'll do that. But there's a reason for that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. It's not like he's the character you want to be, and that's what gaming does. You immerse yourself into the character, and you kind of want to have like a relationship to the characters you have, and Gollum is not the one. Definitely not. Nope. So yeah, I agree, man. I don't know what about the chat. Did you guys like what you've seen about Gollum? And then in the meanwhile, what were your thoughts on RoboCop that has been shown?
Yeah, it's a complete opposite end of the scale. So in RoboCop, they've went kind of far more futuristic, cyberpunky, very glossy to make it look shiny. Like loads of like dim lights and reflections and neon lights and things like that, which would kind of mask the graphical deficiencies to a point, because when things look shiny, that automatically looks like it's high quality.
Yeah.
But it kind of masks the fact that it isn't. There is a lot of deficiencies in that game as well. And I was really looking forward to RoboCop because I was kind of had high hopes for a return to the IP. But aside from it looking shiny and looking, should we say, a last gen game, I wouldn't even say this gen. It's a kind of an Xbox One game, PS4 game.
Early Xbox One generation, I'd say.
Yeah.
Because that's when we had like in every game, remember there was the time where we had like in every game those overdrawn lens flare effects and glare effects, because like you said, when something shines, it automatically looks like good. So there was a time in video games where we just had like lens flare everywhere. You had a candle and like lens flare and everything. Yeah. It's like
yeah, and that's exactly what they've kind of tried to do here. Is just go ultra shiny on things to kind of make it look new and look impressive. But once you've got over that, you've kind of got to look at it, kind of what it looks like it actually looks like, and It looks all right,
Mhm.
but that's not the issue I've got with the game, because you can kind of that is a minor thing. You've got to look at what the game is actually, how it plays and how it looks and how it feels. And now I can't quote on how it feels because, of course, none of us have played it yet. But
Sure.
how it looks like it feels is very stiff,
Mhm.
very slow. Robocop is quite obviously a bullet sponge. Doesn't look like there's any challenge there. Like, everyone can shoot you and you don't get damaged. Like, all the enemies just die immediately. The voice acting's terrible. Like, really bad. Like, for Robocop as a character, you need to have someone that can at least sound like Robocop, but this guy
Mm.
just sounds like he's whispering to people at all times and like really nice and soft. Like, even when he's barging down doors, he's like very soft voiced about it. I was like, this isn't Robocop. Like,
Mm.
what is going on? Like, the brutality of Robocop, even when he was that, they would usually know he was coming, and then they would outnumber him with like heavy machine guns and
Yeah.
big weapons to try and like tear him apart.
Yeah.
But it just looks so sluggish. It looks really sluggish, and it just at the moment from that little, and again, so what I said to you before we went live. The worrying thing for me is it's a game that's meant to be coming out this year, and the most they've showed off is 1 minute and 20 seconds of gameplay. That doesn't shout
Never a good
like
sign.
they're overly
Yeah.
confident.
Especially after
If they were
such a show.
confident, you would. Yeah,
You
and
know.
it wasn't even like a big slice of gameplay. Like, they showed him walking a couple of steps in the street, and then they changed the scene and showed him walking a couple of steps at a different part of the street, and then they changed the scene and the walk, like showed him opening the door, and then they showed a couple of clips of him killing the same guys whilst being a bullet sponge, and then that was it. I was so
Yeah.
it just looked really strange. I hope this improves before it releases, because I do really want a good RoboCop game.
We all do. I
But
think we all do.
yeah,
But I'm very much of a similar side. I just it's not the graphics. It's like the animations and everything looks like clunky, and it kind of, how do I phrase that properly? Kind of looks like a little knockoff from Cyberpunk. You know, they had
yeah,
these slow motion like animations when he tries to shoot or aim at certain body parts and everything. I don't know. It very much reminded me of a light Cyberpunk, but I'm not sure what that game will be. Will it be more? Will it be like a, I don't know, open worldish game? I don't think so. That's not the scope of it, and it's more linear one that has just like a few elements from like a Cyberpunk or even a Fallout, if you want to. They had that system first where they had, what was it called? Blanking on it now. You know, the aiming system from Fallout. You know what
I
I
can't
mean.
remember the exact name, but I know what you're talking about.
Anyway, kind of looks like that, just in a cheaper knockoff way. So yeah, really didn't do much for me either. But everyone wants a good one, including myself, a good RoboCop game. So yeah,
Like I
still
say, the
not.
voice acting for me, it was like the two parts that, because they didn't show much. Again, it was such a small gameplay trailer. Like,
Yeah,
it
sure.
didn't shout
Maybe
confidence.
exactly. Yeah,
But
maybe
what
we
they
don't
did
do the
show,
game
like, there was a
justice.
little. Yeah, what they did show, like, there was a section in the toilet where he was talking to this drug addict, and he was like, "I'm here to help." He
Yeah.
was like, "Okay." And then when he's trying to batter down the door with the guy on the other side, he's like, "I have a warrant."
Yeah.
So where's the enthusiasm? Like, where he's meant to be like authoritarian. He's a like a
Yeah.
very strict,
He's the
regimented
RoboCop.
robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, "I have a warrant. Open
Yeah.
up." But it's none of that. It's just like, "I have a warrant."
Yeah.
So he's just like really soft toned, doesn't really care. It's like, where's the enthusiasm for this character? Like, he's meant to be like
Good voice
brutal.
actors are not easy to get, man. Good voice actors are not easy to get. Oh, and Fantasir helps us out. The VAT system from Fallout. That's what it was called. VATs. Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, so not much excitement here, but we have a lot of other exciting things today. But let me briefly shout out Paul AFC, who has been a channel member for 21 months now. That the first day channel memberships became available, he became a member. So can't thank you enough for the continued support, man. And he says, shout out to the dynamic duo Boxenberger and Dutch. Also the chat for great comments and keeping it lively. Appreciate that, man. And definitely shout out to the chat. Definitely. So let's talk about the thing that broke just like 20 minutes before the show started, and that is Suicide Squad. Might get a delay. There are multiple sources. The one I like to go to is Jess Gordon. So he tweeted, hearing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is grabbing a delay from May to Q4-ish 23. So other sources have been tweeting about this as well, saying, of course, that's due to the fan feedback. We talked about the fan feedback 2 or 3 shows ago, because actually I think like we might be the only one who actually liked what we saw. So what do you think about this delay, man?
Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of how Halo delayed. Like Halo only delayed due to fan outrage.
Mm-hmm.
And on this occasion, it seems like the same thing. Like aside from me, you, and because it was just after Pong Soul had been on, we watched it, and then the next episode we'd talk about it.
Yeah.
And we liked it. We liked what it looked fun. It looked fast paced. It looked like they all had different abilities. It looked like there was a lot of great traversal.
Yeah.
It just looked like a fun game.
A different one. It was not a Arkham knockoff. It was a different game.
Yeah, exactly.
But
exactly. And I didn't think the visuals were bad, to be honest. I think I don't know whether or not it's just me, but visuals are kind of the last thing I look at. Like visuals are a bonus these days. Like as long as the gameplay is there and it looks fun to play, that's the primary thing. Visuals are definitely second for me. And even then, at the moment, I'm finding it very difficult to be uber impressed about some of the visuals that I'm seeing even on current generation games. Like,
I mean, which game truly has really impressed you this gen, visually, from a visual perspective? Like, it's not that games are bad looking, but which game was the one where you thought, okay, that's next gen visuals? So far, Forza Horizon 5, I'd say. That was pretty impressive.
That was kind of like an intro to it, but even then, we all agreed. We said, it's amazing what they've done on the previous engine.
Exactly.
Like they've literally, this is the last iteration of this engine before they've moved over to the new Forza Tech engine.
Yeah.
So this is like the end that they can do with this, and it's phenomenal looking for what the engine is capable of. Like how much they've managed to get out of this engine. So even then, I'm like, yes, this is visually very impressive, and the level of detail is outstanding. But I know they can do more.
Yeah. No, I agree. So it's like, the thing is that the game also looks phenomenal on the last gen. So it's not taking away from the achievement of impressive visual game.
This is exactly what I thought about the likes of God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West. And it's not that the games didn't look mighty impressive on PlayStation 5.
Not at all.
But they looked equally as impressive on PlayStation 4.
Yeah, like the natural evolution. Yes, a little bit more detail, a little bit better frame rates, of course, and everything. But the one that is... Hellblade will be the one. Hellblade will be the one where you will sit there like your jaw drops to the floor and you say, okay, that's next gen, man. That's next gen.
And that's what I'm waiting for. I am waiting for a game where it's hard to think that this is capable on anything but the current gen onwards. And I don't think we've had a game so far where we've looked at it and said that can't be done on previous generation. Even as far to say, and we've all agreed with this, even Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart could be done on the previous gen, and there wouldn't be any issues.
Yeah.
As much as it looks absolutely beautiful, There is no reason why that couldn't have been on PlayStation
Yeah.
4. I think from their standpoint as well, they should have ported it afterwards onto PlayStation 4, primarily for a sales purpose. It would have sold. It would have sold very well, but they
Very
wanted
well.
to have a game that is next generation only, and they have one. We will start seeing those games. Hopefully, that will start to. And again, you've mentioned Hellblade, and again, I think Avowed, Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2 is also one that where I'm really interested. Pardon me, can't even speak. Interested in how it actually will look in gameplay, because it's not coming out on the last gen, so current gen only. And we know
naturally Forza Motorsport is going to look phenomenal. That's current gen only. But again, this is why we never really bring up Forza, because you kind of expect it. It's one of those technical benchmark games. It's a game that you put on to show off. Look, this is what the console can look. This is how pretty it is. And then when you're done playing it for a couple of races, you turn it off again. Like, it's great, but it's also a very, and it's weird saying this, but because it's such a linear game, you kind of, I think the impressive part comes when you see these vast scenarios with hyper detail and like a lot, and not just in a small section where it's like a confined area where you've got like a set of rules, like a track. And as long as everything near that track looks pretty and the cars that are driving on it, you're fine. It will set the bar for a track simulator. But what we want to see, ideally, what I would class as like next gen or current gen, would be something that's as equally as impressive as Forza, but on a much larger scale game, like your Spider-Man or like your Avowed or like your Hellblade. It needs to have that same whoa but
effect.
Also have like a bigger world.
Fable. I feel like Fable could be that game where you have like Hellblade will be super impressive, but it won't be like super open world. It will be more like a cinematic game, not taking away anything. That's definitely, and it will be a technical masterpiece. I have no doubt, absolutely. On a grander scale, on a grander like world map and everything, I feel Fable could be the one. I don't know if Starfield is gonna be like that game where you sit down and say, "Whoo, that's visually next gen." I think
at Starfield, the one thing that's going to be wow, that looks awesome is probably the vistas.
Yeah, it always has, man. Like to this day, the vistas in Skyrim, like you can look at them and you say, "Oh God, dropped it gorgeous," yeah. But then, of course, when you start to look at the characters and everything, now granted, this is now 12 years old. Starfield will be improved upon, I don't know, in every single way, but I agree. The vistas, landscapes, they will look phenomenal. But it's the typical character thing in a Bethesda game.
Yeah.
So we shall see, man. There's a lot in the pipeline. I also feel like, you know what I want to see is the next Tomb Raider. Man, if you look at what Tomb Raider, actually the entire trilogy
Tomb Raider is visually beautiful. Like all of the
and they are moving to Unreal 5 now. That's gonna be. You know what else?
By the way, saying that, I'll tell you what game I am also looking forward to seeing. Well, DLC, Phantom Liberty.
Oh yeah, that's also
next gen only.
I'm actually thinking about getting this on PC then, because man,
you want to push it out. You want to really push it.
I bought Cyberpunk on sale in, I don't know, last year, some Steam sale for, I don't know, whatever, $10 or so, because I wanted to see how it actually looks on a 3080, like ray tracing on and the volumetric fog effects and everything, and it's really a night and day difference.
Oh yeah.
It is.
That's the thing. Like, this is why we always laugh when we're like, because we're no strangers to PC, but we're also not 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 kind of blinded by the fact that consoles are like literally generations behind what the PC is capable of.
Indeed.
Even the current gen, like yes, the current gen consoles haven't been maxed out yet,
No.
and there's still a lot more headroom for them to go.
Yeah.
But PCs have got so far ahead already of what's capable.
Indeed. I mean, you always have to bring in, of course, here the price factor.
Absolutely.
And that is, I think, that is what is so impressive. That's the impressive part about this gen. When you look at like what you can get on the PC side of things. Now, it's different. When the Xbox One and PS4 launched, and you took the $500 and wanted to build a PC at the time, you probably could do that at the time, plus minus around. Yeah, so the consoles were on more or less equal. Of course, leaving out monitors and everything. Just now talking, of course, hardware.
Just that without
the hardware, more or less. Yeah, you could argue maybe you had to spend, I don't know, $600 or $700 to get the same like a Xbox One or PS4 could do when they came out. And that was significantly different 2 years ago when the current gen consoles out. Like for $500 on the PC side of things, you were not even close to getting what you got in the consoles. That doesn't mean, of course, that PC offers you the option to just opt in, and tech has moved on, ever since. And now just 2 years into the console generation, that's an entirely different story. That doesn't take away from the console's capabilities, not at all. For the price, they are still very good hardware, no doubt. And like you said, there's still a lot of headroom left, but that's the point, about why I always say there's zero doubt in my mind that we will see like the mid-gen console refresh. The technology on PC just moves on so much faster than this old 8-year console cycle, and so I have no doubt that we will see like the optional, and that's the key word here, optional.
What would be I think the next iteration of consoles going forward would be to ditch the APU and just go back to having a CPU, GPU as a separate form factor. I think that's the only way consoles can actually progress and keep up or be slightly in line with PC. I think having an APU is vastly restrictive because they're both highly restricted in not only their form factor, but they are customized and specifically built for these consoles, which means that they have to be tuned differently. They have to be built specifically. Where you have a separate CPU and a GPU, you can alter them.
And you have a video pool, memory pool, and a RAM pool.
Manufacturing, you can just literally change up the GPU, change up the CPU, and then send a new unit out. Add a little bit more RAM. Like the cost of RAM these days on PC is next to nothing. You can get like 64 gig DDR4 for like 200, which is nothing. And that's so much more kind of RAM headroom than you have on console. And of course, when they officially start selling DDR5 or GDDR5 sticks, that's going to go out a little bit further again. But
But I wonder where they would end up. I wonder where they would end up price-wise if they drop the APU thing. I think that's probably the main reason why they're still sticking with that concept is the price issue.
But then again, you have a look at what they do in gaming laptops now, in these condensed form factor 3090s and 4090s and things like that are like wafer thin, but are for the same output as the PC version that are like this big.
That's a very good point.
There's obviously a method to it. There's obviously a method to it to be able to fit it into a notebook. And of course, like notebooks and laptops are in terms of their actual lengthwise, not much different to the size of a Series X.
You can arrange that.
Now.
You can arrange that. I agree.
Exactly.
I don't think it's the form factor anymore. I don't think it's the form factor.
Yeah.
It's solely the price, the price thing. I've always said, man. I want like I appreciate Xbox doing, of course, the Series S and X thing.
What I would love is, and I think you're getting to the same point here. I would love a pro version for PlayStation and Xbox that literally just puts all guns blazing.
Exactly.
And I also want the developers to stop limiting themselves to this console version of graphical presets.
Exactly.
When they literally have the same architecture as PC. And just give us the exact settings options.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We can control our performance.
That's what I want. Exactly, man. That's what I want. You're reading my mind, man. You're reading my mind here. It's like
give us that the option to have like a £1,000 console that is like ultra beefy, that just does anything you could want and lasts the entire gen. Or give you that mid-range one like the Series X or the PlayStation 5 at like £500
bucks
that kind of
pound
is a good middle ground one. Yeah. And then if you really want to go down to like consumer level, like basic entry model, then you've got the Series S and things like that. That's if you really want to go that low.
You shouldn't do that anymore. Just move on to do like the streaming thing. Do that at the 100 euro range, 150 with a controller, something like that, and you get like a streaming box.
Even then, if you slightly increase, this is where it gets a bit weird though. If you slightly increase the base model, like it's 250 at the minute. If you increase the middle tier one to 550, increase the base model one to 350, you've got 100 extra headroom there on the base model one. Gives it a little bit more GPU power. The CPU is fine. We know the CPU is fine in the Series S because it's exactly the same CPU that's in the Series X. So you just need that a little bit more GPU power. Of course, we know it's only 4 teraflops now in comparison to the 12 that's on the Series X. Even if you increase that to 8 or 6 teraflops, like the little bit extra power, a little bit more horsepower to go along with the CPU, it wouldn't be anywhere near as much of the outrage as it is now. But even saying that, like I say, it's a middle ground one. It's just giving those options if you still want to give those options. But I don't think, like I say, if you give, this is your base entry level version. It's 350. It does the basics. Doesn't do any more than the basics. Like games are 1080 60 or 1080 120. Like don't even put 2K on the box anymore. Just give them super high performance for a very low price. You're still getting good enough graphics and things like that, but it's all 1080. It doesn't go any higher than 1080. It has its upscaling method, so it looks okay on a big screen, but that's it. Then you have the middle tier one that can do your 4K or up to 4K, 60, 120, and then you've got your big beefcake top end one that can do everything, bells, whistles, 4K, 120 ray trace and all that block. That's those 3 tiers is how it ideally should be. And you can go into the shop and say, it is. I don't game that much. So I don't need like the uber powerful one. So I don't need to spend like $1,000 on.
I need my classic console, which is around the 500 euro mark. Yeah, I would do the lower tier. I would do that differently. Honestly, I would just like eliminate that as a offline console.
If you're going to eliminate the lower tier, then I think the middle tier needs to then come down in price.
I'm not sure. Like we've had that for forever. Like you have one console tier at the 500 euro mark, in between 400 and 500. Yeah, depending of course on the generation. And now you have an ultra entry point. Really like the streaming stick thing, I don't know, $50 for the thing and $100 with a controller or something like that. Yeah. And then you have this uber powered higher tier. I agree on that. In any case, why would I want that? Because I want them, what you said earlier, I want them to move away from that classic console hardware design where you have like specific console hardware. I want them to literally have like a proper GPU, a proper CPU. I want to have them a proper motherboard in there. I want to have them standard RAM in there.
And RAM, and again, if you've got standard RAM or even laptop RAM, as it were,
that's also standard for me. No developer has to specifically.
It's so easily upgradable then from a user perspective.
It's not just about the upgrading. It's for devs easier to develop because no developer ever has coded specifically for a laptop version of a RAM. Never, ever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and Xbox has moved away from this. Like, we make console games. Yeah. They make PC games and they port them to console. And you want to take away that extra pain of the on the developer side of things, because at the end of the day, it is extra work to do that anyway. And that's probably why Sony still struggles with so at least one part of the reasons why Sony struggles with the idea of porting, bringing the games to PC and console at the same time. They start to optimize just for console and then bring it to PC. That's like just a different approach. Not saying it's better, not at all. But I'm saying that, of course, from a developer side of things, you have to develop for PC anyway. And you do that because you develop your game on a PC. And then you have to put in extra work to adapt the game to the console version. And now, of course, with Xbox, we have two console versions, like Series S and X. And at the end of the day, you have you have only like a certain budget. Yeah. And everything you develop comes down to a budget. And you get 20,000 work hours to optimize your game for the consoles. And as a third-party developer, you have to split that budget then. Yeah, you have to take 10,000 hours for the PlayStation version and then 10,000 hours for the Xbox version. And at the end of the day, market share is a thing. So you might end up, give 12,000 of these hours to the PlayStation 5 version because you will sell 3 times the amount of units there. You put in a little extra work there. You have 8,000 hours left for the Xbox and you have to divide it between Series X and S. And then you end up, with only 4,000 hours of optimizing for that particular platform. I think, by the way, that's one of the reasons why we see some games perform better on the on-paper weaker hardware of the PlayStation. It's just when we always say, oh, the devs didn't optimize, that's why they did it. Because it's at the end, it's budget. It's always come down to a certain budget. So now, taking that pain away and just having the console ready as a PC, like the Steam Deck. Take the Steam Deck. Yeah, you can do that approach. So, although the Steam Deck also has a customized chip, but in general, no one has to code separately for the Steam Deck. You know what I mean. So, anyway, that's what I want. We shall see.
But even saying that, I would think it's for me, when developers complain about the weaker console, I always go back to the fact that these are the same developers that are porting for a PC where the minimum benchmark on the PC and the minimum requirements are always below that of the lowest denominator on console. Like when they saying, okay, well, we can't do it on console because X, Y, and Z. And then they release their specs and they've still got a GTX 970 on there or a 1080. I'm like, you're lying. The console can, at this point, the console can definitely not be the problem if you're able to run that game on a 1080 and it be performing well.
100%. Remember my video 2 weeks ago? It's exactly what I say. When people tell and talk about, the Series S holding things back, not at all. You always have to look at the lowest common denominator, and that's the minimum spec on PC. That is what holds your game development back. Everything else.
The only time where that makes sense is when you have a look at, and there has been a few of PC games lately, when you have a look at the PC games that are releasing and they've got ridiculously high standards for what the game should be running at. If you have a look at The Last of Us Part 1, which is coming out for PC, to run that game 4K 60 ultra settings on PC, you need a 4090.
So it's not very well, probably not very well optimized. But on the other hand, what are the minimum specs? What are the minimum specs? I don't know.
Exactly.
I put the example of Stalker 2 in my video as an example because it's ridiculously low. What they need as the minimum specs on PC, yeah.
And this is what I'm saying about the Series S specifically. Like, one of the major overheads is you're looking at resolution cost, and graphical fidelity. And if your one of your biggest overheads is the native resolution of what it's outputting, is drastically reduced because, of course, the console doesn't require it. Specifically, the Series S is a max output of 2K, and it upscales itself to 4K. But it usually runs at 1080 and upscales itself from there, and it does a fine job in it. It doesn't look bad, but it doesn't require any more than 1080p. Then you've already saved a ton of resources on the native resolution output. Now, if you go and then have a look at the level of the level of fidelity, the actual level of detail and things like that you're outputting on the Series S. Again, it doesn't need to be as grand as that on the Series X or the PlayStation 5. You just drop those down again. You drop the shadow qualities down. Like, you can save yourself an absolute boatload of overhead on the Series S. But I think it's a case of that they just don't want to put... And again, it goes down to resources. And by resources, we mean hours. And they just don't want to put in that time. And this is why I've kind of said myself, the only way we're going to see what the S is really, truly capable of is from first party.
Because the third party, I've heard that argument many times. I have to jump in here because I have heard that argument very, very often. That the true potential will only be seen in first party games. I'm not sure about that because at the end of the day,
a few developers that are outliers that will just max out everything that they can. But I think the only way the Series S will show its true colors will be from first party. Series X.
Yeah, okay. That is something I can agree upon. But at the end of the day, also every first party developer has to make the game run on PC. They also all come out on PC. And so, again, depending on... Let's take Hellblade as an example. What Ninja Theory will decide to put in as the minimum spec on PC is what is basically, the lowest common denominator. That's what it is. So I agree that they will probably be the ones, the first-party studios, that get the biggest budget to port their games properly on consoles. And that's why we will see them perform very well on that. But in terms of when people want to see like the tools, things like mesh shaders and everything, as long as the minimum specs on PC are not like, now I have to lie, I think it was the 30 series, RTX 30 series that first introduced on the NVIDIA architecture mesh shaders. Don't quote me on that. I think so. So like whatever that generation of graphic cards was that first introduced that on the NVIDIA architecture, unless those will be the minimum specs, and it's hard to believe that the developer puts out a game with a minimum spec of like a 3060 or something. Yeah. You won't see those tools in action. You won't. Yeah. And it always comes down to the question, how much of a user base is a developer willing to leave behind? And that's the same for first party, because again, first party has to develop for PC and that audience as well, which I appreciate them. But at the end of the day, that is the thing that will limit your tools. But I agree with what you said on Series S and X, by the way, will get probably the biggest budget for developing the console versions on the first party side of things. So that's definitely where we'll see them shine.
I just think it's not even just the X. I think X wise, it's performing as it should be. Really, of course, there's some outliers with some games that aren't optimized properly and happen to be optimized correctly on other consoles. But with regards to the issues surrounding developers complaining, or I say developers because it's very, very small, limited developers that are complaining about the Series S, but these devs that are, I think it just boils down to optimization time. Not that it can't be done. I think it can definitely be done, and it can definitely run absolutely fine on a Series S. No problem. I think there's plenty of budget still left in that little machine. And again, there's so much you can do, but they don't want to scale it like they do on PC, and that's just something that we want to see. We want to see more scaling options.
Oh yeah.
If that needs to be scaled down to medium settings on a Series S, then do it. It's a budget console for a reason.
Yes.
People aren't buying the Series S to have Series X and PlayStation 5 tier graphics. They're buying the Series S because it's a budget console.
Yeah.
They're not there for the bells and whistles graphics.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the entry point. It's like I just want to play a game, man. That's why you buy that console. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. So I have to briefly interrupt our Suicide Squad discussion.
Suicide Squad's weird though.
Hang on.
Suicide's good to go back to that. Yeah.
Because I don't know. We just got off the rails a little bit. I don't know. So we talk like 30 seconds about Suicide Squad and then like 30 minutes about something else. However, I need to shout out Jonas that because there's a super chat from him waiting for way too long in the chat. So thank you so much for the support and the $5. He says, love the show, great as always. So is crying Ryan ending PlayStation? They may go to Sega after this. Hit that like button. Yeah, we will get about the Sony to the Sony thing a little later in the show. A little later when we finish the intensive discussion about Suicide Squad. But man, definitely would appreciate you guys hitting the like button. We have well above 100 live viewers here at the moment, which is absolutely awesome. And the support is greatly appreciated. If you could do us the favor, just hit the like button. Those little shows like us do really appreciate the boost you get in the YouTube algorithm. So yeah, man, Jonas, thank you so much for the super chat, and sorry for reading it so late, but yeah, we just got stuck there. So now I can't get the like $1,000 Xbox Series X Pro or whatever it will be called in my head, and I'm also having like problems with the camera
doesn't want to stay on today.
I don't know what it does.
I wonder if it's the cable. Might be a cable issue.
Could be. Now I would have to move my desk in order to get there, so I don't want to do that during the live show.
Fix it later.
So if the camera turns off, I don't know why. Anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back to Suicide Squad. It's we thought it looked good. The outrage seems to be specifically around the battle pass. That was really where I saw most of it. It was the battle pass and the fact that it had DLC. And
I think like people just
a service game.
That's the point. Like people are sick of games as a service games. I think that's just it can be a very, very good game, and I feel like I've said that about Anthem. If Anthem would have marketed themselves not as a games as a service title, but as a single player game with optional co-op, and just people would have just played the campaign as it was, and after you beat the final boss, the game ended, I think Anthem would have been a success. I do believe that. Like, you had a game which had a 20-hour campaign, 25 hours, depending on how you played it, which was great. You had like a great combat system. You had a great, like, graphics were cool. Like, okay, the story wasn't super impressive, but hey, I think it would have been a success. And I feel like this is a similar thing. If we've seen it in the trailer, like they had like these fast-paced conversations and like tried to get in the humor and tried to get in the seriousness, and they usually do a good job at Rocksteady with those kind of things. And then they have like a new combat system, different traversal system. It's a different game. It's not an Arkham knockoff game with the Suicide Squad characters. It's just a different game. But I think that the games as a service thing is what turns people off. Even though it's optional, you can. I have no doubt that you can buy the game, play the campaign. That's probably how I'm gonna do it. Yeah, I'm gonna buy the game. I'm gonna play the campaign. I will enjoy my 20, 25 hours of my playthrough, and then I move on. And I had a great experience.
You know what it is? I think, and this is one thing that people kind of aren't willing to accept, is you've got different types of games as a service games. You've got games as a service games that are like Avengers and ended up with loot boxes and things like that. And those we don't want, and we don't want to see more of. And then you've got the opposite end of the scale. You've got games as a service games like certain MMOs, for instance, which are like Elder Scrolls or Fallout 76, which continuously add to them, either with expansions, or you've got new cosmetics, new armor sets, and things like that, which are all entirely optional. And Sea of Thieves is a perfect example. Like, all of the DLC, everything that comes with Sea of Thieves is completely at no additional cost. So when they add new things to the game and they change the game, everyone gets it. Everyone's on the same plane. And the only things you can buy are ship sets, weapon sets, and clothing. And none of it affects the actual gameplay. It's just sheerly cosmetic. And that's how games as a service games should be done. So you should have these rolling free updates that evolve as the game goes. So if the game gets different and it changes it and you evolve it, and like in Sea of Thieves at the moment, you've got a place called Golden Sands, which went from a little island and now into a huge city outpost. And they're literally changing that week on week. You can go into the server, and every week there's another part of Golden Sands being built and changed. And they're doing that every week until Golden Sands has been massive. So you're actually seeing the building of an entirely new island live as the weeks progress in Sea of Thieves, which is something that a lot of games as service games haven't done. And I think from what I saw about Suicide Squad was that this was another one where the content was vastly and mostly cosmetic.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything there that would restrict players from playing with each other.
They literally said it's all cosmetics. They said that.
So I don't understand the back. I would fully understand the backlash on a games as a service game if it was a case of this is a games as a service game and it's gonna be rammed full of loot boxes and no one gets the same updates as everybody else. So to get this one, you need to buy this expansion to get and then it locks people out. I can understand the outrage there, but if it's just cosmetic as they've said it is, and people are having that outrage, like they're gonna have a bit of a shock when Sony's 10 games as a service games that are in development at PlayStation start rolling through, because there's going to be a lot of them to fail and or succeed there. It's not going to be an easy task, and there's going to be games as a service games, but it has to be done well. And games like Grounded and Sea of Thieves and Minecraft, those are games as a service games that are done very well.
Yeah.
They don't disrespect you. Everybody's on the same level footing. Everybody gets the same updates.
Yeah.
The only things there are cosmetics. You can make yourself look different to everybody else. They're constantly adding new cosmetics in there. They're doing limited time ones and event-specific ones and stuff like that, so everybody can take part and be a community. And that's what games as a service game should be. It should be an ever-evolving world that you go along with through time. You don't miss out on anything because the missions that you start off with are always there. And I think that's part of the reason why Destiny had its backlash, because they started to remove missions from the game. They removed content that was there from the start, and now you can't play some of the originals. Like, it literally doesn't exist. They deleted a lot of the original game. It's gone from Destiny. You can't even go back and play it if you wanted to now. It's gone. It's vanished. That is a games as a service model you don't want, is when they start removing things from the game that that is literal lore. Like, they took story out of Destiny and it's just gone.
Yeah.
And that's the outrage I can understand. The Suicide Squad outrage around simply cosmetic additions, I don't get it. I never will. I'll never understand that
I
outrage.
agree on that. And adding up on that, in the case of Suicide Squad specifically, it's Rocksteady. Have they ever disappointed? Maybe Arkham City wasn't on Arkham Knight wasn't on the same level as Arkham City. Would agree there, but it was still a phenomenal game. So I have not played a bad Rocksteady game. So they definitely deserve the benefit of the doubt here. So yeah, man, it's kind of looks like it's getting delayed. Honestly, in May, especially since they wanted to come out like May 28th or so, very end, tail end of May, I feel like it is anyway the right move because it's getting crowded at that spot. It is just like a week after Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom is gonna come out. Like 6 days later, we have Diablo. We have Final Fantasy at around that time. May is crowded, especially the tail end of May and very beginning of June. So it could be a wise move because so far, at least for the holiday season, outside of course now Starfield, and we get to that in a second, we don't know much about the second half of 23 from Xbox or the third parties so far. So could not be the worst idea. I just wonder how much of game actual meaningful changes they can do to the game with that kind of delay. If the Q4 that Chess Gordon tweeted out turns out to be true.
I'm sorry, what was going on with your horse there?
No idea.
He was like walking up on his two front legs.
I don't know. It's sometimes very rarely happens, but when you try to climb mountains with your horse, it kind of gets stuck there. Like,
I love them kind of bugs.
Me too, man. Me too. That's why I hope that Starfield will have at least a couple of those classic Bethesda bugs, man.
You've got to have a couple of classic ones in there.
Yeah. Otherwise, they will have to bring out like the bug patch or bug mod where they like bring them in. So what was I about to say? Now I lost my train of thought. Doesn't matter.
Sorry.
Damn it. No problem. Anyways, man, Xbox is getting some new hardware. At least that's what the leaks have said. This week, it turns out that Xbox is gonna bring out a new toaster that is gonna look like the Series S. Have you seen that, man?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Following up on the fridge, now we get a toaster. So the question is here.
They've already done a Walkman as well, but they didn't sell the Walkman.
Right, that was just like a Twitter giveaway thing. Yeah.
It was for influencers. They give them like a tape recorder that looked like a Series S.
So
it's a damn shame.
Yeah, it's not the kind of hardware I want. I want the Elite 3. But
we keep getting household items instead.
So now we're getting to that point where we really have like the Xbox household. You have the fridge, you have the toaster. Like the next thing will be the microwave or something. I don't know. But man, let us briefly talk about. Well, it probably won't be so brief. Let us talk about the current status of ABK and the CMA and the Sony and everything that happens and goes on that side of things. Because this week, whenever Lulu posts something, I'm getting kind of tired of the entire ABK deal, like a lot of people. But whenever Lulu posts something, it's kind of hilarious. So she pointed out, and for those who don't know who Lulu is, she's like the head of the legal department at Activision Blizzard. And she said that Sony obviously stated that they do not want a deal. They just want to block the merger. And Microsoft is also running like full page ads now, apparently in the UK. I don't know if you've seen that, but in the Financial Times, they printed like an ad that says the company will be able to bring Call of Duty to 150 million more players. They printed that as an ad in Financial Times. So yeah, but the one of the big conversation points this week, before we get to the other one, is of course that Sony does apparently not want a deal. They just want to block the merger. Man, we've talked about this, that Sony kind of maneuver them into this lane where they can't get out of this looking like a good or trustworthy business partner. Really doesn't matter what we think right now about this, but like all their other business partners look at this as well, and how they behave here, and what comes out of this. And so, man, what do you think? Lulu pointing it out that they just want to block it.
Yeah, and I think some people think as well, this is the strangest thing. People treat Lulu as if she works for Microsoft. She doesn't. She works for Activision Blizzard.
She said something like they did not want to take the deal that Microsoft offered them, which was significantly better terms that we, as ABK, would actually offer them ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people, like I say, people go on and treat Lulu as if she works for Microsoft. She doesn't. She works for Activision Blizzard, which is it's even worse for Sony, because this is we're talking about a company that's being that petulant to one of their largest, what they claim is their largest vendor, their largest third-party deal that they have, that essentially keeps all of their first-party IP running, and they're treating them like that. Like, do they honestly think that the relationship is going to be better off once they've their
I don't know. It baffles
vendor?
me. What do they think? If this, let's assume that the deal gets blocked. What do they think? How will the working relationship in between an ABK and Sony be like? If those are the guys that blocked the thing, I don't know.
Exactly. And if for some reason the deal didn't go through, that relationship is going to be truly soured. And do they honestly think that going forward they'd be doing exclusivity deals with PlayStation anymore, regardless of how big they are? Like if Sony claimed from their contract, which is something like 70-30 or something at the minute that they've got with Activision Blizzard, if they claim that earnings is significant for them, they've got to look at the other side for Activision Blizzard, who have that 70%, who are earning far more than PlayStation. They don't need to worry about a 30% slice going missing. They can just go, we don't care. We'll give Xbox the exclusivity.
Yeah.
We'll make a Nintendo version. We'll hold up that part of the bargain that we agreed with Microsoft. We'll do the Nintendo version.
Oh, do you think? I'm not sure if that's gonna happen.
I think so.
You think so?
I think the working relation. I think following this, regardless of what happens, I think the working relationship between Microsoft and Activision Blizzard will be far stronger than it's ever been, regardless of whether or not it goes through. And I think mainly because they've seen a new side to one of the competitors that they didn't think they'd see. Specifically, one that's like, I understand them defending a stance, but there is sometimes a case of don't bite the hand that feeds you, and that's exactly what they're doing with Activision Blizzard. So they're not attacking like Xbox when it comes to this. This is a quote that they've said to Activision Blizzard, not Microsoft. If they're saying we want to block your deal to Activision Blizzard, Lulu, that that isn't saying it to Microsoft. That's saying it to, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you want to harm your own relationship with one of your largest vendors?
That's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, I get why Sony does not want this merger to happen, but at what cost? And I know I've seen a lot of people argue on Twitter about this, that okay, of course, that was something that they said behind closed doors, and Lulu kind of came out and made it public. That's also like an unprofessional behavior, but at the very end, I feel like, what is the more unprofessional behavior here?
Lulu the comment just, or making public the comment?
I'm not sure. You know. And Lulu knows exactly what she does within, like, first of all, of course, the legal range. I have no doubt. And the other thing is, she knows exactly how to use, like, the poor behavior of the Sony department right now in their favor. So yeah, I don't think that this is unprofessional in any way. And case.
The thing is, is if there was any untruths in the quote, if there was any untruths, she would have been, regardless of whether or not it's
absolutely.
She would have been asked to remove it.
Yeah.
And she would have also had a DMCA from, or some form of takedown request from Sony. She would have had it if there was any untruths. This is what people aren't understanding. Like, you can't make a comment like that without something behind it. And the only way to take that down from either side would be if there was no proofing behind that statement.
Yeah.
There has to be a requirement. There has to be a level of factual to produce a statement like that.
Yeah, indeed.
At her level, regardless of whether or not it's a personal account. And Lulu's had to make this statement a few times and say, listen, this is my account. Like, this isn't my work account. This is my account. I can say what I want to say and what I need to say. So I'll say it.
Yeah.
It's essentially the way she's putting it. And that's fair. She wants to speak out on it and just lay it out as it is and kind of give clarity on the situation and what's actually being said, and know that legally she can do so. Then, yeah, let her get on with it. I don't see any harm in bringing to light the actual facts of the statement. But I think Sony, even that wasn't the funniest thing that came out the back of it, to be honest. And we'll get to the rest of it. But I think the funniest thing was actually Sony claiming that Microsoft would intentionally gimp the game after launch.
Let's talk about that for a second. Hang on. Where do I have the quote? Because it really,
it's like tinfoil hat kind of complete.
Come on. It's
again. Mode.
I get why they want to try to block it. I do get it, as it's their biggest competitor outside of Nintendo, of course. But yeah, Nintendo is kind of playing a little bit in a different ballpark or league. They just do. But so I do get why they do it. They want to do it. But it has to do for me with, like, reputation, with, like, believability, like, and when you say things like that, it's like, how do I phrase it properly? I want to say, like, what would Sony do? What would Sony do if they
exactly
were
what it is,
put on their shoes? They want to buy that. And it feels like with these arguments that they put out there, like, every day or every week, they put out, like, these weird statements, and it feels like they took their playbook. What would we do with our game if Call of Duty was ours, and bring that out as an argument? Because we've seen that in the past. Yeah, they said, like, third-party deals, taking games away. Like, all these arguments were like, okay, that's what Sony actually does. Now they've run out of these obvious things, and Microsoft kind of countered them all. Like, we're not gonna take them away. They've signed legal binding contracts with Nintendo, with Nvidia. So all the things that Sony does, withhold exclusive content, like getting maps first, getting content first, like paying for parity, like all these things that we know that Sony actually does. Microsoft already countered, and so now it feels to me like, okay, now they're bringing out the playbook of things they, at least to our knowledge, they haven't done so far. But that's what it kind of feels like to me when they said things like this, that Sony claimed that Microsoft could launch Call of Duty with intentional bugs on PlayStation. It tells the UK watchdog that Activision merger should be blocked or Call of Duty divested because this would happen.
There's like zero grounding for it though, and this is where what we say is like why they're taking it from their own kind of rule book.
Yes,
because it's kind of like they're looking in the mirror and have extreme and like paranoia because they've done it themselves. So they're like, well, we've done it, so what's to say that they wouldn't do it? I'm like, well, first of all, Microsoft would just say, well, look at the track record. First of all, Minecraft Dungeons runs the same, if not better, on PlayStation. Minecraft runs better on PlayStation. Like Outer Worlds runs the same, if not better, on PlayStation. Like there's countless things throughout the course of this where games that have been released on both platforms have either ran better or ran the same on PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I don't know like where they're getting this idea that we'll intentionally gimp a game that goes onto Xbox when we've actually seen that this year several games that have marketing rights with PlayStation happen to be better on PlayStation and be terrible on Xbox. And then have to get patched for Xbox afterwards. And they always put the slogan "plays best on PlayStation" on everything that they release that's got advertised with it. Play it first on PlayStation. Plays best on PlayStation. And I wonder why it says that. We know why it says it because, of course, they've got these clauses within their contract that says that it has to have either technical parity or be better.
Yeah.
And that's why that's why they've got this paranoia head going on, and they're just like, well, tinfoil hats going on here. What if Xbox waits until the game releases and then patches in bugs to break it?
Yeah.
Like that is extreme, like
ridiculous arguments. I agree. Doesn't make sense at all. But yeah, I think paranoia kind of hits the nail on the head here. So I have the feeling that I don't know, the deal or like the watchdogs, the CMA and the EU and the FTC, they all come to a close of their findings, more or less. Like in a good month, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Mid-end of April, all these different institutions have to give their shout. Yeah, yay or nay. So Sony kind of runs out of time. If they're not gonna take the deal anytime soon, there might not be a deal. I'm not saying that Microsoft is gonna take away Call of Duty from PlayStation immediately. But they don't have a deal. Do you think this is something that could happen, or if the deal?
You know what it is. What I think would happen is, of course, they might not sign a deal. And if they don't sign a deal, I don't foresee Xbox removing Call of Duty from the platform. But what I can see is them saying, "Listen, you didn't sign a deal for technical parity. You didn't sign a deal for everything day and date on your console, the same as everybody else."
Mm-hmm.
You were offered that deal. The deal was actually better than the one you had, which happened to include exclusivity. They've also said if it goes onto our Game Pass service, you can have it in your PlayStation Plus service. They've said that.
They said that. They reassured this week as well. Yeah.
Yeah. They literally said, if we put it into Game Pass, you can have it in PlayStation Plus.
if you choose
any
to.
of them, and all content that
Yeah.
goes into Game Pass, you can have in PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
Which is part of the game service things. So it's going to come to a point, and this is the thing where we'll say, well, you were offered the deal, the original deal's there, but we're not going to improve them. And if you choose not to accept it, then it's just a rolling contract on your current agreement, and it's never going to get any better. But you're also never going to have exclusivity agreements, and it's never going into your service.
Yeah.
So you can spit your dummy back out as much as you want, but we offered the deal to everybody.
Yes.
Everybody else has all of
Yes.
these lovely bonuses, and you've spat your dummy out, so you're not
Yeah.
getting them. Everybody else has got parity, and you chose not
You
to
think
have it
Xbox
because
would
you're
actually do
proud.
that? It feels like, it feels like the petty thing to do, and it's sometimes probably
Yeah.
the right thing to do, just to, to put you out your stance.
I think
But
it
is
would be
Xbox
petty if
that
they
feisty?
I think it would be ultra petty if they removed the game entirely.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would be petty if they just said, well, listen, you're not getting a day and date, and it's not going in your service. We offered you the option to have both, and you've rejected that. So we're not going to be at some point they've got to stop getting walked over themselves and say, listen, we offered you these options. I'm not just going to have that option available to you indefinitely. If you want to come back and renegotiate in the future, then we'll renegotiate. But there is an expiry to this deal. If you don't accept this deal post-close, then you have to come back and renegotiate a deal that we can come to an agreement on. And it's on our terms, not on everybody else's terms.
Yeah. I agree.
And I think that's the way it'll go down. I think they'll just say, listen, we'll renegotiate then. But it's on our terms now.
Yeah. I do have the feeling that is what's probably gonna happen then.
Yeah.
I agree there, man. We've said this for like almost the entirety of that we had the discussion, that Sony probably over dramatizes the importance of Call of Duty. I know you've been saying that. I've been saying that. I've seen a lot of others in the community say that. This week we got actually confirmation from Xbox about that, or more or less confirmation. Rima Alaili is the corporate vice president of Microsoft's competition law group. And she told Axios in an interview that Xbox firm commissioned a YouGov survey in January, and the finding was that just 3% of all PlayStation players would switch to Xbox should it make the series exclusive to its platform following the completion of the Activision Blizzard deal. So, of course, it's a survey. It doesn't mean
Very
set in
limited.
stone, but usually, if you pay like a lot of money to an institution like YouGov, at least the ballpark is right. So whether it's 3%, 4%, or 2% really doesn't matter, but that's the ballpark we are talking about. So let's assume under 5% would switch actually. So with Call of Duty to PlayStation, is the importance actually there? Because people always discuss when it comes to ABK only like it's all about Call of Duty. But man, I know the deal is done for mobile. They've said that multiple times. They confirmed this week that they plan to, after the acquisition, they plan to move the storefront, the mobile storefront, forward. They want to have like competitive mobile storefront towards Apple and of course especially Android. No wonder Google is saying no. We don't want that merger to happen. But yeah, do you think that the importance of Call of Duty is overrated in that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. The only reason it looks like this to the public, and even right now from Microsoft, is because they want to reassure. So to Microsoft, Call of Duty means little to them, but they understand the importance to regulators, competitors, and the general public that Call of Duty is still a massive IP.
Yeah,
It's not to say that
it
Call of
is.
Duty is not a massive IP.
No,
I think
no,
Microsoft they're stressing that right now to make sure that the general public knows that they can forever play their game on whatever console they want to play Call of Duty on.
Mm.
However, internally, Call of Duty is not the focus point. Call of Duty is like third, fourth down the pecking order when it comes to what this deal is about. Like, it is very much still mobile. It's still king. It's still cloud.
Yeah.
It's that side of the business that is the main thing for them. And they've already ironed out the cloud issues. Like, regulators aren't bothered about the cloud, and they're not bothered about multi-game services anymore. Like, both of those things are pretty much satisfied now.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft have already signed deals with all of the other multi-game services, or those who offer services such as Steam, i.e. Valve, such as NVIDIA GeForce Now, and anybody else who wants a contract and wants these games in their service or subscription service can do so if they just contact Microsoft and negotiate a contract. So the fact that they're willing to go out there and say, listen, you can have these games in your services should you want them in your services, that's kind of ruled out the issue that they've got with multi-game subscription services. They're saying, listen, we're not going to dominate with all of our content. If you want our content on your service, you can have it. Like, it's only a benefit to us because that means more people play our games and we still get a cut from it.
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense to restrict it. And when you're talking about these other subscription services, the likes of, even if Google was still around, or Amazon or Nvidia, they are not console gaming. These are like really niche streaming services. Like, they're not in direct competition with the consoles in any way, shape, or form. So it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference what games appear there.
I wonder why Microsoft is never using that argument, at least to our knowledge or the public knowledge, that like, hey, we want to break up the monopoly of storefronts on mobile.
Yeah,
because so far
and there's
doesn't matter which
Google and Apple.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Yeah, like, as soon as you are in either of the ecosystems, you are dealing with a monopoly. You cannot buy. Yeah,
Apple's by far the worst mobile monopoly. Once you are in that ecosystem, you are stuck forever.
that's the thing. So I wonder why we never hear that argument. Like, what the merger would do good for mobile. Yeah, the mobile.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if you have a look at any of the regulators, not one of them have had a concern about mobile.
Not one. None. I can't remember one single argument, and that's the thing. That's why I wonder why Microsoft themselves do not try to steer this. Probably they do, yeah, but that's not what we've been hearing. So yeah.
If it was a concern, it was that minor that it wasn't something that would be a restrictive issue, which is why it was kind of waved out of the final conclusions, because it hasn't been there for the final conclusions. None of the big mobile companies have raised concerns. Like, none of them have come out and said, no, this is a concern. The only ones that are concerned about the mobile segment, as you've mentioned, were Apple and Google, and they own the mobile storefronts.
Yeah. Tom from Toonami in the chat and also Happy Cloud Gamer point out that they apparently said that and used that argument in the response to the CMA. So, okay, good. Might have missed that.
Yeah.
It's still definitely not the big topic or point, talking point they try to.
Yeah, I think the main talking point for them has been cloud, multi-game subscription services, and Call of Duty. I think cloud is done now. Cloud is resolved. Multi-game subscription services, I would say that's resolved. I think the only sticking point, and even then, I think this is resolved now as well, is that Sony is the only one that isn't signing an agreement, whereas the rest of the industry is happy with it now. Yeah, so the rest of the industry has now pretty much reduced its concerns. Another large merger competitor in Tencent has also said, like, listen, we're happy with this now. We're fine. So even them, as a big kind of Chinese, should we say, investor,
Yeah.
a massive investor, is also saying, "Listen, we've got no issues with this anymore. We're good."
Yeah.
So even
Indeed.
they've swept it under the carpet. It's literally Sony the only outlier here, and it comes
And
to a point where all of the regulators will look at this and say, "Listen,
credibility,
the
man.
only company with
Yeah.
an issue now is Sony."
Agreed. I agree, man.
Now are we protecting a business, or are you protecting the market?
Yeah.
And when there's only one company saying that it affects the market, and the other companies say it doesn't affect the market, and they have no more concerns,
Yeah.
when does that become you are in the minority, not the majority, Sony? And unfortunately, your concerns are not great enough to warrant blocking this deal.
Facts, man. I agree. And you know what? Sony is looking to make some acquisitions themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got 5 billion left to spend.
Exactly. So this is what they had to say this week. We spent almost 1.3 trillion yen by the end of last year. We have another year. We would like to create more than a 3 trillion yen cash flow in 3 years' time. Next year is the last year in our current mid-range plan. We're going to allocate operating cash flow to strategic investments and capital expenditure, as well as share buyback. So that converted over to US dollars, that's around 5 billion that they want to spend on other acquisitions. They didn't necessarily say gaming space, but given that this is like the giant part of the company,
for Sony, unlike Microsoft, when they're talking about acquisitions, that could be anything. When it comes to Sony, you could contribute most of that to gaming because that's the biggest profit margin for Sony by a long shot. Like PlayStation is the money king for them.
Shout out to Valentone in the chat. I love it.
Some organic
purchases. I love it. Good lord. Yeah. That's the organic growth. We see. I mean,
And to Justin Lambert in chat, he says somehow they're going to buy Take-Two with that money, according to fanboys. I would say they're probably going to buy Take, but not the two.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. An investment.
Yes,
but
indeed.
Not all of it.
Indeed.
They'll buy the front door.
I mean, if you look at the purchases that they did over the last 2 years or so, they bought like a lot, like at least 10 studios. Not all of them are like the big AAA ones. Like there were a lot of support studios as well, like Fire Sprite or what they're called, for instance. So anyway, they never, outside of Bungie, they went for like a high profile acquisition. And even Bungie was done in like less than, I want to say, 6 months or so. Because the deal was just at the edge of the size where it's getting looked at more in depth. Yeah, so I wonder how this would go if they would like go out and spend the 5 billion on a bigger acquisition, and then they have to defend themselves in front of the regulators. Would be interesting to see, man. But I assume that they will spend like the money on smaller, lower and profile studios, and rather have more than one bigger one. What do you think?
Well, that's the thing I think we're expecting now, because Microsoft's not done with acquisitions either. The problem is they're needing to get this one finished before they can do anything else. But I think from Microsoft's side, they're going to definitely focus on smaller acquisitions, studios, indies, and things like that going forward. They're going to kind of space out a few of the other smaller guys and kind of get a few smaller teams on board, mainly just to pack out Game Pass in different avenues. So like little family games from little indie developers and these other little cutesy games and things like that. So I think they're going to kind of aim for that after this purchase. and those won't need the scrutinization because they'll be that
Yeah,
finite
yeah.
in value. They'll be like 20, 30, 50,
It's
100
like
mil.
when when Microsoft bought like a Ninja Theory, you did not even hear that because it's just not big enough. Those kind of
Yeah.
deals get scrutinized at higher volumes, and
Yeah.
bigger budgets.
Exactly. Which is
So
why we saw that year when Microsoft like purchased 5-6 studios off the belt.
yeah,
They're like, and all of these guys are joining us. We're like, what? There's six new developers.
honestly,
Awesome.
that's the thing about. I've said this before. You know, the ABK acquisition is not for me. It's just not. Console gamers are
I'd be
not
more. I would be super like my one specifically, and I've said this for a while. I think we've both said this. The one we'd be most happy about, I think, would be a Sobo.
Sobo, a Crytek. I would love that. Even People Can Fly, things like studios like that. I would love that. And if they get like, if they take like 1 billion, they could buy like. I'm making stuff up now, of course. I don't know the real numbers, but like you take 1 billion and you can buy like 3, 4, 5 of these kind of studios. Like how much was Insomniac? Insomniac was
235 million.
There you go. Less. So with 1 billion, you can buy 4 Insomniacs. So you get a Sobo, you get Crytek, and you get like People Can Fly. And honestly, all of that would excite me more than me personally.
I mean, like you say, like Activision Blizzard, like the IPs that they've got is fantastic, but
absolutely
not ones that are exciting me. Like I am more excited in the capabilities of a Sobo. I've seen what a Sobo are capable of, and they are still I would say in the early phase. Like it's their biggest hits have been assisting on Flight Sim and using their engine for Flight Sim, which is phenomenal. Plague Tale Requiem, I've forgotten the first one. What was the first
Innocence.
Innocence, that's the one. Yeah. And phenomenal, and that was their own engine.
Yes,
phenomenal.
Absolutely. So
I think, and we're having a look at them. We'll have a look at, as you mentioned, Crytek. With the Crytek engine is just insane. Yeah. And if you put a little bit more budget behind Crytek, they could reach the pinnacle of studios again, as they once were.
Yeah.
Crytek were once one of the top tier developers, like pushing the boundaries.
Yes.
And now they're kind of struggling with funding, and they could really do with a little bit more support. And I think Microsoft should get them in house and get them done.
Exactly. So, and that's the thing. They have been stuck on this ABK deal for over a year now. Even before the thing got public, their hands were bound. So it's almost 1.5 years now, or something like that. Yeah, a year and 5 months or so where their hands are tied. And just imagine what else they could have done. For
Sony, I see them acquiring part of Square Enix.
Yeah.
I can see Square divesting more of their studios, and Sony snapping up those divested studios.
Especially
Sony are still going full charge into blockchain and NTCs or whatever they're called. And that's what they're focusing on. And I think that's going forward, that's what you'll see more of from Square. I think they've kind of lost their impetus there now, but I think we've already seen what's happening with Sony's relationship with Square. It's already pretty much exclusive anyway. We're never seeing those games come to Microsoft or any other platform for that matter. So we may as well just get used to that. And I think it makes on Square Enix's side, I think they're happy or quite willing to divest the remaining studios out.
I agree. It seems like the obvious thing to do. So I don't think I could also honestly see Sony try to go after Sega.
Yeah.
Because simply they know that the name carries a lot of impact. And I'm not sure. Honestly, I have no idea what Sega is worth these days. But obviously, they are not the same anymore as they used to be.
I think they're about anywhere between 2.5 and 4 billion.
Something, yeah. So that's definitely then in the ballpark of the possible. And it carries a lot. So yeah, when I think about ABK, honestly, I always feel like, okay, everyone, Call of Duty, yeah, cool.
4.3.
4. There you go. Like, absolutely in the ballpark for Sony. Activision Blizzard, I think about these IPs that they could revive, and that has me excited. I want them to revive like a Starfield. We're gonna talk about Starfield in a second. StarCraft Ghost especially would be awesome. Like a Tony Hawk, yeah. Even things like a Pitfall would excite me. There's a lot of potential IPs they could revive that would excite me a lot more than what they bring in. Outside of Diablo. That's the one thing that excites me about this. But other than that, yeah, it just is what it is. So the question really is how many of these IPs will they actually revive? If we see one, I think that's a lot, because Xbox has a lot of IPs they could revive.
I think what we'll see is if things, and again, you're seeing. Again, you don't expect them to actually use the IPs much, but I think using studios such as Toys for Bob in the right way could utilize a lot of the the family games that even Microsoft have.
Give them a Banjo,
yeah, things like that. Like Toys for Bob would be the absolute perfect developer for Banjo game.
Yeah,
perfect. Look at the tremendous work they did on Crash Bandicoot, Crash Team Racing, Crash Trilogy, Spyro. Like, these are phenomenal remakes of classic IPs.
Yeah.
And I think having them work on a Banjo again, even start them off with a remake of Banjo, get that fresh look and that fresh feel for these classic Banjo games, bring those to modern gamers, and then let them loose on a new IP, I think would be phenomenal work.
Yeah.
That's what I'd love to see. That's the biggest thing that I can think of from, and I've said this since day one, my biggest thing is I'm so excited by what Toys for Bob managed to do with the Crash and Spyro and everything that I'd love for them to be utilized with some Microsoft IPs that we haven't seen for a while, like your Banjo. Like, if Banjo was done correctly, that is a direct competitor to Ratchet and Clank.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Even a Spyro, you could develop that IP towards
Spyro, I mean,
that.
even if you like push the boat out, like you massively push the boat out and you say Spyro, Crash, remaining multiplat, go everywhere, right? You push the boat out and you say that as they are legacy IPs and everybody knows them and everybody loves them. So Microsoft are really friendly with it and they just give everybody those IPs and everyone can play them. Fine.
Yeah.
I still think that Toys for Bob can be utilized for, like we mentioned, banjos and things like that. And it would just be insane. I think that would be where you get a huge market kind of push there. You could properly turn Banjo into that again, or there's quite a number of them actually. Yeah. There's quite a number of huge IPs that they could go back to and look at. And
yeah, the potential is there. But Dutch, I think it's time to talk about the big elephant in the room that we have not talked about just yet. But before we talk about Starfield, I need to shout out the 109 live viewers we have here right now. Super appreciate you guys taking the time out of your schedule and lending us your ears and eyes, maybe. So that means a lot. And if you do enjoy the show, it would be absolutely awesome of you guys to hit the like button. And of course, if you're new here, we also appreciate a consideration of a subscription of the channel. It's free. It helps us a lot, and we truly appreciate the support, guys. So, Dutch, Pong was wrong.
Pong was wrong. The marchers fall.
There we go. I must admit, I was also wrong. I said
I had the furthest out date of all of us.
Yes, that's true. So Starfield coming September 6th. At first it confuses me because I watched the trailer.
European date range.
Yes, because like the US is I think it's the only country in the world. Yeah, exactly. So everyone in the world, writes day, month, year.
Yeah.
No, but
the US
for whatever reason,
month, day, year. Why?
It's like no idea. And honestly, I was like, so I watched that trailer. I was like, oh damn it! Like 6 days apart or 4 days apart from Diablo.
Yeah.
And it literally took me like 10 minutes or so to realize, no, it's September because the US.
Yep.
So September 6th.
That's what I was saying to Pong. I said, if we all just move to Europe, we could just make sure that it comes out in June and just say, listen, it's European date range.
There we go. There we go.
No choice now. It's releasing in June.
Oh, good Lord. So, so shout out to our American viewers and listeners, but you guys really need to change that system. It's not okay to be like the only one in the world to do it differently. So, and it confuses us. Think
a lot. A lot. Every time.
Every time.
Even on movie posters where they're like, coming out the 2nd of... And then sometimes it confuses the living daylights out here because they're like 1/13/23. I'm like, there is no 13th month. What are you talking about? Oh, wait. 13th of... Right, okay.
At work, when I go on vacation or so and you leave the automated message in your mailbox system, I used to type in like, okay, I'm away until, I don't know, 9.06.23 or something, yeah? And like, all my American business partners were like, oh, is he going on a sabbatical or why is he like staying out for 3 months or so? And that's why I started, honestly, that happened not only once, like many times. And then I was like, okay, now I write it out. I write in my away message, I write like, okay, I'm away until the 6th of September. So, see, guys, the struggle we have to go through just because.
It's never mind that, but you've got like 2-3 time zones. You've got
exactly
you've got different dates. Like, just get one time zone, guys. One time zone, same date range.
Thank you.
It'll be all good.
Thank you. It's even with our guests, like when you try to schedule,
just like PST +4. Like, what's that? I have no idea what that is. What are you talking about?
The only American time zone I'm remembering is like Eastern. I know that. Okay, that's 6 hours behind me, and then I don't care. I write to everyone.
But even then, like, their daylight saving times are at different times of the year to us.
Yes.
Like how? How?
And Microsoft, if you are listening, Outlook does not automatically adjust that. So usually what happens if you send out like an appointment, an invite or something via Outlook, they automatically get it in their time zone in the correct, right? But when they switch like daylight saving times, it does not change in Outlook. So that happens every time that I have the meetings, then at least for 2 weeks or so, until the rest of the world changes as well, is adjusting. It's like
Gaming Forte saying, stop this madness, leave our calendar system alone.
Don't get me started on the Imperial system. So, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that now. We do that. We save that for another podcast because I have a lot to say about that as well.
Yes. So Starfield's releasing in June.
Hang
Thank
on.
you
Tom
to-
from Toonami sends in a super chat. He says, beware the ideas of March. Love my ass off. I was a Marcher too, but not upset about the delay. Annoyed, but not upset. First of all, thank you for the super chat, man. And yeah, that's. I think that's the thing. Not upset about the delay, but a little upset or annoyed. Anyway, so how do you feel about this, man? Yeah.
I am neither here nor there. It's not that I'm not looking forward to Starfield, but because of the way that I am with games, like Hogwarts, I didn't realize was a 60-odd hour game. I thought it was 30-odd hours, but it engrossed me to the point where I just didn't stop playing it. And before I knew it, I'd finished it all.
Yeah.
But going into Starfield, I know it's more than 100 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already got like this kind of fear in the back of my head thinking, God, this game's massive and it's going to take us forever. And I don't know where I've got the time. And I'm already one of these guys that just plays like 10 games at a time because I'm like ADHD kicks in and I'm just like, yeah, I'm bored. I'm next game. Oop, I'm bored. I'm next game. And it's not because I'm not enjoying the game. It's because my mind just goes, nope,
Yeah,
you're done. Next game. So it's not that I'm not hyped for the game, but because it's like a subconscious thing because I know the game is really big. Like I am kind of dreading it as much as I'm looking forward to it. So it's kind of, for me, I'm like, whew. Like I don't have to think about playing that big game at the moment. Yeah. Now it's in an area where it's got lots of free time around it, and there's not many games releasing at the same period, and the games that are releasing at the same period aren't of like as same significance. So it's not like a Redfall, it's not a Forza, it's not a Diablo, it's not Street Fighter, it's not Res Evil 4, it's not like it's none of these huge games that I'm really looking forward to are getting in the way of this Goliath that I'm gonna have to try and play through. Yeah. So for me, it's more of a kind of minor relief that it's been pushed to September, which is a more vacant area, as opposed to trying to crab it into a very busy first 6 months of the year when there's like so many things happening at the same time. And again, I just mentioned a handful of those games. That doesn't include another boatload of other games that are also releasing that I've missed out entirely, like Minecraft Legends and things like that. And potentially Forza Motorsport might still release in there. And you've got other Final Fantasies dropping in the middle of there in June as well. And there's so many things happening in the first 6 months that I am kind of glad that it's been pushed to September. So it's not like a mega delay. It's like it misses the opening window by like 2 months, which is it's not the worst, not the best, but it also means that they're giving it more than ample enough time to really polish this game. Like it hasn't been a full year since its delay. Its original delay was from November. It's got pushed until September. So it's like 10 months. So they've given it an ample enough time to polish it out. And I think given that a couple of extra months from what we've seen as well in the little snippets of gameplay in the trailer that released for the release date trailer, it looked like it was a lot cleaner. It looked a lot more polished. It certainly looked a lot more fluid in its mechanical kind of aspect of it. So yeah, it's coming along well, and I think those extra few months will only do the game good. So for me personally, I'm not bothered. It doesn't affect me really. I'm still looking forward to the game, but I don't mind waiting a couple more months because this first few months of the year is ram-packed as it is. So I would be more concerned if all of these games that are coming out in the first half were coming out in the second half, and then Starfield missed the first window.
Yeah, see, that's the thing here now. Okay, where do I begin? I have so much to say about
and
this.
And again, I think it would also be much worse for Microsoft as well.
Yeah.
If Minecraft Legends and Redfall weren't already announced as coming in April and May, I think if those already weren't announced and we didn't have dates for those and Starfield got delayed, we'd be like, what the... like, what is going on?
I know, but then I have to say,
But we also
Like,
still have to call them out for saying these are games coming out in the next 12 months,
that's the
and they're
thing.
missing that target. And that's
So,
essentially the thing. They
I
said
know.
themselves.
Listen, I was just thinking.
Granted, they put that little disclaimer targeting, but you made a whole song and dance about on
12
the game
months.
show last year. These are games coming out in the next 12 months. And how many of those games have missed the 12-month period now? And it's not one, it's not two. There's like at least almost a dozen games from that 12-month bracket have moved either to late 23 or 24.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. I don't have an issue with the date itself. I think September is a great day for a game like a Starfield. You know, we are all coming back from the summer vacation. We are kind of in the mood now to get back into video gaming, and then you bring this game out, and we all know it has the longevity to last well into the holiday season. So when the Christmas season and Black Friday season starts, you know, it's still like fresh enough to generate sales. So it all makes sense. The date itself makes sense, and I'm always glad when developers get the time to polish the game. And like you said, from what we've seen from the very little teaser trailer, the guy playing in the background, and there were like short, like quick shots of the game itself, looked like a lot more fluent. It looked, and that's what people heavily criticized in the original showing, the 30 FPS. So it looked a lot more fluent. Honestly, I was like, there was one shot in there, and there was a similar shot in the first original trailer that had like almost horror-esque impressions. There was one shot in the original showing where you had like a kind of reminded, like, you know, a small corridor with like flickering, and now my camera is gone again, and it was like, oh, this is like, could be like a jump scare moment. And in this trailer they had like this really bad ass ugly looking alien kind of thing that was also in a very dark, badly lit room. So I wonder if they will have that kind of like exploring like dungeons on a planet that scare you. So everything looks fine. So I have no idea this game will be an absolute masterpiece. On the contrary, like you, I'm looking very much forward to spend like well above 100 hours in there. I'm so excited to have finally this world where I just can get lost in, go exploring, do things my way. I cannot wait. Super excited. So all good with the delay itself, all good with the date itself. September, there's really not much in that announced so far for that area. So it will have the focus. I think the date is great. No doubt. My issue comes in, of course, with the 12-month thing. I said
it was as Steel Rain said in chat. It's what they mentioned, and they trapped themselves in that box. Like, if they hadn't stressed, these are games coming out in 12 months. This is the games you can play within the next 12 months.
Yeah.
This is 12 months. 12 months, 12 months. They are the ones that said it.
And so that's the thing. That's the thing.
You have to hold them to their own words.
Absolutely. And it comes down again to marketing and messaging, which just shows Xbox does not get that right. They just don't. It's this artificial pressure that they put on themselves for no reason whatsoever. No one. I have not once heard anyone in the community, in the creator scene, in the media ever called for something like the 12-month window. Not once have I heard that before they did it. So it's their artificial pressure that they put on themselves that put them in the position. Now, granted, we all knew one game will move out. And we all said, we sat down here, Dutch, how many, I'm still excited to get like first round at Gamescom, you know, our bet about Forza. Then Forza moved out, and everyone was like, okay with that, because I know Forza has not moved.
This is the thing as well. Like, the Forza delay bugged me more than the Starfield delay has.
Because it's more casual, you know, you can play like a couple of hours, and if you want to play something else, you just move over, or why?
No, it's more so that they literally just include it in a developer directed show that included every other release date, and that was the only one that didn't.
they didn't.
And then they didn't clarify what would happen with the game. It was so like weird messaging. Like the entire game show, we had an awesome shadow drop in Hi-Fi Rush. We had confirmed date for Minecraft Legends, confirmed date for Redfall. We had DLC for ESO, and then they capped it off with Forza Motorsport, and then didn't say anything. They just said coming 23.
Yeah, true that, man. True that.
I was like,
I get that. Now, you mentioned earlier
with Redfall, the only reason I'm not like, I wasn't over the top with Redfall, I'm not overly concerned, is we kind of had an inkling it wasn't making the first half, or might just slip out of the first half as soon as it wasn't included in that developer direct. And the further out that the announcement of the showcase got, the longer we thought it's not making, like, it's getting further out here. It's like, it doesn't seem like it's going to make March now. It's probably not going to make April. And then we kind of look at the release pipeline and think, actually, usually once they announce a game, it's released within like 3 weeks of the date. So it's actually strange for them to have a direct that's 2 months before release.
Yeah.
That's kind of far out for them. It's usually much closer to release when they do like a game preview.
Let us talk about that in a second, because I also want to know your thoughts on this, because it is kind of weird date.
Yeah.
Two things first. I need to finish my train of thought before I lose it. But first, I need to thank our generous friend, Drawn TJ, who sends in a $5 super chat and says, Xbox needs to buy a remaster studio that remakes games, and they need a studio that polishing studio. And do you think they have the last one? Like, especially when they get the ABK, they have so many support studios on their hand. But like a dedicated remaster or remake studio for some of their classics. I mean, it works for all the other platforms. Nintendo's doing it, Sony's doing it. And yeah, definitely would be cool to have some very good and well realized remakes. I want to see your Crimson Sky remake, man. That would be so dope. That would be so cool. But yeah, on the 12-month thing. Like, I wasn't a fan after the show last year of that, and I'm even less a fan now, because the thing was, they came out, okay, here are all these games that you can play in the next 12 months. The exciting part, for the most part, were already scheduled for 23. So out of the 12-month window, the first 6 months weren't really that exciting, because we had a Plague Tale Requiem, which was like Game of the Year contender, absolutely. But other than that, until High on Life came out, which was very tail end of the year, it was for the first 6 months not really much to get like really excited about for people. And so everyone was looking to the first half of 23. That's when Xbox is gonna fire on all cylinders. Yeah, that's where they've gonna bring out a Forza. That's when they bring out a Starfield, and then a Redfall, the cherry on the top. Then and no one ever mentioned Minecraft Legends. No one. So it's gonna be a massive game, I have no doubt. But it has a certain like target audience. So Minecraft Legends isn't the thing. The thing people want is a Starfield. It is this big AAA blockbuster game. The system seller, the console seller, the reason why to get into the Xbox ecosystem. and that's not a Minecraft Legends, because that's out on everything, So, and now we look at the first half, and they had the great surprise of Hi-Fi Rush. Granted, absolutely, no one saw that coming. Fantastic moment. But that's not the system seller game. The system seller game is a Starfield. And that's now second half. You could argue, okay, Xbox fans, they are used to waiting. That's what they do. Just wait. That's okay. But with Xbox breaking another promise yet again on delivering, it is.
And
I get the disappointment. I do get it.
I was going to say, as we've mentioned, Boxy, it's not a promise that anybody else has asked them to make. It's a self-imposed thing.
Exactly. It was so unnecessary. Exactly. Yeah. We wouldn't be as disappointed if they would just delete the games, and that's it. And they come out and
even just saying coming by the end of 23.
Yeah,
like it's a big open market.
Mav said something last week that stuck with me. So shout out to Mav. Xbox overpromises and underdelivers so often, and now they kind of need to start to underpromise and overdeliver. And I feel this is exactly this. They overpromised.
And I kind of thought they started that at the developer direct. They underpromised and overdelivered because the Shadow dropped an amazing game.
Exactly.
And then things.
And then things came out. Yeah. And now I look at the first half, and all the games that I'm excited for don't have a date yet, outside of Redfall. That's the only one, which is May, which is also like very tail end of this 12-month window that we have been waiting for so long. So, looking forward to Redfall, no doubt. But other than that, I don't know when I can play a Forza. I do know when I can play a Starfield, but that's like long time. It's another half a year, and it's another 6 months of wait for me to play that game. What is also with the other exciting things, like where's Hollow Knight Silksong? Where's like Flintlock? These kind of games. We don't have the dates yet for them either, so they are not coming out in the first half. I don't think so. And that's like the thing that Xbox put on themselves. And I've also seen like, okay, with Starfield coming out in September, that's it for Xbox in the second half. Because they're not going to release a Hellblade close to a Starfield. When they could bring it out 2 months later in, I don't know, in November. It could still, I do believe that. But I've seen people bring up that argument. And of course, Microsoft not showing anything outside of the alleged 12-month window, which is now an 18-month window. People don't know what to expect in the second half. And we all were excited because we thought, okay, with the massive game blowout in the first half, they gotta have something for the second half. But now, do they? It's a question. So as much as I'm excited for Starfield, I gotta say it's disappointing in the marketing and communication from Xbox. Just yet again, when it comes to marketing, they just don't get it right. So Dutch, how do you feel about this whole situation?
Yeah, so like again, I'm not like we need to call them out on it, but I am not like massively disgruntled by it. Again, it's got to the point now where it's like, oh, Microsoft, the same old stuff coming again. It's got to the point where like we kind of continue to be like majorly outraged with Microsoft because it's just the same stuff we've kind of got used to at this point. We shouldn't have to get used to this because again, it's just a case of consistency, and we've said this for weeks and months. Roxy.
Yeah.
Consistency is going to be the downfall of Xbox, regardless of what they do. If they can have one absolutely banging 6 months, but if the next 6 months is terrible, and then the next 6 months is terrible, and then the next 6 months after that is good, but then the next 6 months is terrible. You can't have that inconsistency. It needs to be a consistent output and consistent quality.
Yeah.
And that's where the competition is. Like, even when the competition doesn't have consistent outlays of games that are built by themselves, they have consistent exclusives that release, that do well, that will make sure that they have something to shout about. They are consistent with the quality that they output. Now, of course, we know there's going to be some that don't hit the mark along the way, because you're never always going to win. But even if 3 out of 4 of your releases that year are major hits, you're onto a good year anyway.
Yeah.
And this is what Xbox need to do. They need to get into a cadence where they have 4 major releases a year. And even if one doesn't hit, at least 3 of those have been a major success. And that's fine. And it needs to be that cadence.
At the end of the year, we will still have the discussion about, okay, why is Starfield the game of the year?
Yeah.
So it will, no doubt.
Why was Redfall a hit or a miss, and why was
everything
Legend
like that? Yeah, and Forza, how good looking that game is and stuff. We will discuss this absolutely at the end of the year, because the games are gonna come out this year. So yeah, I get that it's Starfield moving out is not a big deal, but now out of the 3 exciting first-party titles, I'm leaving out now a Minecraft Legends, intentionally. Yeah, I know that's still coming, but out of the exciting ones, Redfall, Starfield, and Forza, it looks like we only get 1 in the first half, which was promised. So yeah, I get the frustration.
Forza's a weird one, isn't it? Because we don't know. We don't know. It could hit. It might not. But their wording suggested it probably won't.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, and it wasn't in the Developer Direct show. It was in their own showcase after that, their own Forza Monthly, where they said, over the next few months, we'll talk more about the different things that we're doing.
No.
They didn't mention anything about any release date or any release window. They just said, we'll update you as the months go on. Which to me doesn't sound like it's anytime soon.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
After they have not they had the Developer Direct was the chance. They've shown the game. It showed very well, beautiful looking, exciting, everything, career mode, everything we want in there, and then no date. Yeah. So if you miss that opportunity, it's because you don't know the date yet, obviously. So it's and then of course
it also makes me wonder what the holdup with Forza is, because I know they're done with QA testing and testing in general, so they no longer have beta testers, alpha testers, QA testers, etc. required. Now they've ended that, finished that part. So it makes me wonder what it is that's holding up the game at this point.
That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. Can't
say. Is it that some of the content that they've got is needing finished up, like such as certain tracks aren't finished yet?
Could be. Maybe they tried to pull off the stealth drop thing during E3.
It could be that. It could still make the window. Because it's at this point, it's not. We originally said if Forza's going to release, it's going to release in the Forza window, and the Forza window is usually August, September.
Yeah.
But with Starfield releasing in September now, I can't see it hitting in September. It could hit beginning of August, but my likely scenario now would be the original window I thought would be for Starfield, which is tail end of June, July area. And you've got July, August, September. So you've got a kind of month, a month and a half, maybe 2-month gap between the two of them. I can't see Forza being a winter drop. I just can't see it. It's not a holiday game, as it were. It sounds strange to say that, but that's not a major holiday release. Like Forza isn't a major holiday release.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do agree. So my theory is really like either they want to do like the stealth drop thing during E3, so out now, or they probably gonna release it then in October. They have Starfield at the beginning of September, like 5 weeks later, somewhere middle of October, they release that. And then they have like a Hellblade in November. So, yeah, I don't know, but it's a weird one. Forza is a weird one, definitely.
Yeah.
Drawn TJs.
It's
Hang
mainly
on.
because I've got no idea. It's
Yeah.
because-
Yeah, because it's so weird. We know for a fact that they've ended that alpha testing phase. It is really is a weird thing. Drawn TJ sends in $5. He says, "What about Hellblade 2, Arc 2, and the game by the Ukraine people? That's Stalker 2. That's one of my most anticipated games
Stalker 2,
for the rest of the
Stalker
year.
2,
Honestly,
yeah. Stalker 2. I agree with Boxy as well. One of my most anticipated for this year.
you know that we are going to see it
hit.
soon. They announced that this week. They will have a gameplay show during Game Developer Conference on the Nvidia stage.
Oh, nice. Yeah, showing off ray tracing, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's gonna look pretty. That's gonna look pretty.
Oh yeah, man.
That's gonna end up being a game you get on PC, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wait, does it release? Wait, does it release on? Because it comes out on Game Pass.
It comes
on. Is it on PC Game Pass?
I would assume so.
I would assume be on PC as well.
So
bells and whistles.
I hope it has cross save because I want to play it on both. I want to play it casually because that's also like a massive game, man. That's another 100 hours gone right there. Stalker 2, it's gonna be a massive shooter RPG-ish game.
If it's on Game Pass PC and console, usually comes with smart delivery because it's one in the same.
Smart delivery, yes. You mean cross progression?
Yeah. Sorry, what's the term that they use for the play anywhere?
Play anywhere.
Boosh.
Yeah,
that's the one. Not smart delivery. That's a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
The play anywhere thing that they've got. So because it's in Game Pass for PC console, I think that would have the cross progression thing tied to it. Thankfully. But yeah, they have been adamant as developers that game is definitely still 23.
Yes.
And I think they've made it their personal mission to get that game done this year to kind of have their own little bit of a win in such a bad situation.
Agreed.
So I think they're doing what they can to make sure that happens. And to be fair, every time I see it, it looks better. So
it looks phenomenal, man. It looks, and it always used to. Even the old ones were like real PC graphic showcases, like can it run Crysis kind of level. So yeah, man. And from I don't know if they have still the target, but before the invasion in the Ukraine, they said that they definitely want to bring 120 frames per second mode on console. They want to bring also ray tracing to console. So it kind of looks like we will get like different modes to play with. Gonna be fantastic. Do hope we get Date, man, during the Game Developer Conference. I doubt it because I don't think it is big enough to announce the date. But on the other side,
you never know.
Game Developer Conference has become a thing, man. It has become a thing. It could be.
Exactly.
It could be.
And I think Nvidia might want, because of course, at the minute as well, if you have a look at what Nvidia and the likes of Unreal are doing now, like when Unreal were doing a showcase for the engine, did we expect them to go, we've got the next Tomb Raider game, we've got this? Like, we didn't expect all of these game announcements at an Unreal Engine tech demo event, but we got them. So now I'm watching all of these obscure shows because you just never know what's going to get announced now, because some of these shows have either engine demonstrations where they announce games that are going exclusively via their engine, or the Game Developers Conference where they're showcasing ray tracing, but happen to have a release date and showing off new gameplay because that engine wants to show off what it can do, or that bit of hardware wants to show off what it can do. So I think it's always a possibility, and I think it's a good area for them. GDC is huge still as well. GDC is a massive stage for Stalker. Outside of E3, it's the only real big stage left before Microsoft's June showcase. And
they might steal the show or get the show stolen by other games during E3 on the date.
Especially if it's we know. For instance, we know the June showcase for Microsoft. won't have Starfield because they have their own showcase after the showcase.
Yeah.
So we know that there's going to be new announcements at Xbox's game showcase.
Yeah.
So you don't want to plonk Stalker into there. As much as we're looking forward to it, it's definitely going to get overshadowed by new announcements.
Yeah, it might be still on there. But
it's going to be in a sizzle reel at the end that's saying all these games coming out in the next 6 months and blah blah blah.
Yeah, maybe even they show like another trailer or something for it. But yeah. And
to ask about the other ones,
Hellblade 2 and Arc 2.
I have no idea, but Hellblade 2 I still think is a holiday release title.
Yeah, me too. I still, even Starfield going to September, I don't think that changes that. Because again, they could easily bring that out at around November. So there's definitely the possibility there, unless Avowed is ready. Could also that's the thing, you know.
I can see Avowed being one of the first quarter games next year.
Could also be. It's either way. It's either way. They move Hellblade there. And Arc 2, yeah, man. Vin Diesel riding a dinosaur. I don't know. They are so quiet about that game. Yeah, they show up like once a year during some showcase with a short trailer. But we have not seen gameplay. We have not seen anything other than these little trailers.
We know it's on Unreal Engine, which is a big change
Unreal
from
5. Yeah.
Unreal Engine 5. We know it's a single-player game.
Yes.
So it's changing from the original.
It will have a single-player campaign. It will still
a proper
have
campaign,
Yeah, exactly.
I just see that game potentially having a mode separate, like Arc 2 will have its single-player campaign, but it will have a separate mode that is just akin to your original Arc type of game with it building, crafting, survival stuff, but it will have an entirely separate standalone campaign with Vin Diesel, etc.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can't see that have anything to do with the regular survival game.
Yeah, I agree. Whatever the regular survival game is, I still don't get Arc.
I have no idea. It's the weirdest game ever.
It's the most weirdest game. Smokey.
I attempted to play it a couple of times and I was just like,
what is this? I have no idea. I have no idea. But people seem to like it, man. It's a success.
Yeah.
Smokey sends in a Canadian $5 super chat. Appreciate the support, man. He says Microsoft gives release date delays, gets shit on. Microsoft gives 12-month window, misses, gets shit on. No more dates, shadow drops only. You know what?
I think we'd always, to be fair, we'd like that. We'd much rather they said, we'll give you the dates within a 2-month window of its release.
It's what I wanted to say. When games went gold, as soon as a game go gold, announce the date. Say, okay, Starfield went gold. There's the date. Go for it. That's what we need. What we need more. It's like unpredictable. With these delays.
The problem is they've got this, and this is what game showcases have done. These game showcases, which originally were meant for investors, have turned into public showcases. And when you've got public showcases, you need to provide information on when people can play these games, and that is self-inflicted damage right there. And you're restricting yourself as to these public available dates. When you've got internal dates, that's another thing entirely. That's what caused the CDPR issue, because internally the directors and all the big hierarchy wanted that game out, even though the developers told them, listen, it isn't ready. That was an internal struggle. It wasn't because they'd give a date. They said, it isn't ready. We can't meet the date that you've got in mind, but you're going to go ahead with that date anyway. And you're going to tell the public about this date, even though we've said to you it's not ready. I think now it's a case of, if you say, okay, we've got these games coming out in the next, these ones are 2023, these ones are 24, these are the 20. That big window, or coming out in the next year.
Like the year. Yeah, coming
Yeah.
soon. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
These are coming soon. These are further out. Whatever. But don't give a as and when the game, as you mentioned, goes gold. Then go right. Okay,
There we
this has
go.
gone gold. This is your release date.
And
Here's a
even if you
trailer.
need a proper marketing campaign, you can still have that. You can plan for a marketing campaign ahead, and you can also have like 2.5 months in between gold and release date. This is more than enough to market your game properly. So, yeah, Smokey, good point there. So, you may already mentioned it earlier. They also announced, along with Starfield, the release date. They announced the Starfield Direct and the actual Xbox E3 showcase, which will happen on June 11th. And right after the show, they will air the Starfield Direct. So you already said, okay, that means obviously probably not gonna be at the big show. They will probably just mention it and say like,
Straight after the show.
straight after the show,
Starfield
exactly,
gameplay
like obviously.
developer direct.
So that's gonna happen. But I wonder, why do they do that? Because like you have this hype after the Xbox E3 show. You have this hype. Everyone is excited for what has just been shown. I don't know. We're gonna see a Hellblade, and we're gonna see a Fable, and we see an Avowed, and I know it's all not gonna happen, but actually, I do think it's gonna happen. But you know what I mean. So we are energized. We are full of excitement for the years ahead. And then you show Starfield, which is super exciting, but you don't need the excitement at that point because you already have that. You could rather use that like 3 weeks later when the excitement slowly dies off. E3 is a couple of weeks behind us, and then you need this excitement boost. So why not have the Starfield Direct then, to closer to launch? Because in this day and age, you know exactly that the hype dies off very quickly. Like 2 weeks after the Starfield Direct, the hype will be gone. So I wonder, why put this 3 months ahead and not a little bit closer? Not that I'm complaining. I'd rather have it tomorrow, but from a marketing point of view, you know what I mean. So what do you make of this?
It's very unlike Bethesda, to be honest, because historically, Bethesda have done it within a 2 to 3 week period of their release date. They'll have a gameplay showcase, they'll announce the release date, and then it gets released 3 weeks later. Like, it's usually been like anything between like 17 to 20 something days after the gameplay showcase and that it will release. So it's usually quite close. So it is strange for them to do a release date and then a showcase and then the game releases a couple of months after. But I think that's more akin to the Microsoft way of doing things than the Bethesda way of doing things. I think if Bethesda were doing things, they'd have their showcase a couple of weeks before that release date, and that's when they would have told us the release date. But I think Microsoft were kind of saying, listen, we haven't said anything right now. People are still asking when the Starfield showcase is, so we'll tell them, and we'll tell them the release date, so they stop asking. And I think that's the only reason we got this release date, was because they kind of got sick of people asking when the showcase was going to happen, and they just wanted to get the showcase announcement out the way. But they kind of tied it in with the release date as well. I think it might have. I don't know whether or not it would have been received better or worse if they didn't have the release date on the showcase announcement, and they just said, join us on June 11th for the Starfield showcase, and then on that showcase they announced the release date. Whether or not the flack would have been as bad.
That's a good point. I'm not sure. A lot of things
because,
get
again,
buried in the overall E3 excitement,
Yeah, exactly. It kind of would have been as okay, well, and the intention to keep it away from the main show, because the main show has all of these new things And Starfield's been announced many times over, so we're not going to kind of put that with the rest of them. We want to focus the Xbox showcase here on brand new stuff we haven't shown, or games that we're announcing is releasing soon, and have Starfield do an in-depth 15, 20-minute gameplay thing on everything that we've seen so far, and kind of a rollout to launch kind of marketing campaign.
Yeah.
So it's strange for Bethesda. I don't know whether or not it would have changed things around if they kind of left it and just said, listen, join us on June the 11th for the Starfield Direct, straight after the Microsoft Bethesda showcase. And then at that one, announced the release, that might have been received better.
Maybe. At least we now have clearance. We know it's September. No more speculations. Gotta admit that. I've been saying that for a while, Dutch, that Xbox needs to take the narratives in their own hands. And with all the speculation going wild about release dates and conspiracy theories here, left and right, I think it was the right thing to do. Even if there is a little flag right now for not hitting the 12-month window, I still feel like taking the narrative in their own hands is a good thing, and that's what they did. And now we have clearance. We know when we will get the Starfield showcase. We know when we will get the E3 showcase.
Yep.
And we can all start to just get excited for the game, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. While we are on the subject of E3, man, E3 opened the industry registration today, actually. And so you can get your tickets now, guys. Go out if you plan to go on to the E3 showing. Go out there. But the thing is, not many because publishers have actually committed to coming. The only one is Ubisoft, actually. And they claim, of course, AAA companies will appear. That's what they promise, but nothing has been confirmed so far. So do you think bigger publishers will show up? We know Nintendo is not coming. We know PlayStation won't come. So what about the others? Will Warner Bros. Show up? Will I don't know, EA, of course, show up. Who else might be there?
Oh, Sega, maybe.
Maybe. Square.
Maybe Take-Two. You might get your GTA 6. We've been hearing a lot of rumors recently about that could be next year. Surprisingly, I've been hearing a lot of rumors saying that could release as early as next year, GTA 6. So you never know. You could have your Square Enix. You could have EA. I don't know whether or not they've already ruled themselves out or not. You could still have maybe Tencent. You could have maybe Embracer Group appearing with some of their studios like Crystal Dynamics, etc. Show off Tomb Raider, for instance. But even then, I mean, you could see an Embracer show because they've got a multitude of studios now, so they could have their own mini showcase. You could see a Tencent show because again they've got a multitude of studios now, so you could see a showcase from them. It depends. I don't know. It really depends on what they've got lined up. We usually are more interested in seeing what Sony, Nintendo, and Xbox are getting up to. Big one for me is waiting to see this forever rumored Sony showcase. I want to see what Sony's working on. And you can't ask for it on social media because if you ask where a showcase is, you just get a lot of entitled crybabies that are saying, "Oh, it'll come. It'll just like why are you complaining for? Like they've never let us down, so why wouldn't they? Because it's been 18 months and they haven't said a word. That's why. Because they've been like the quietest they've been in the history of Sony. Like I want to know what's going on with their IPs.
Me too.
Too quiet.
Way
Too
too
quiet?
quiet. Way too quiet. It was always their strong suit, actually, to have like this well laid out roadmap. That's what won them the PS4 generation, because realistically, if we go back at the very first 2 years of the Xbox One and PS4 generation, both had games. Xbox had games, Sony actually did not have that many games. In the first 2 years, we called them the indie station, if you remember that. Yeah. So, but they had this great roadmap. So this is why you invest in the PS4, because eventually you will get this, and this game. And that's what Xbox has done actually well, in my opinion. Yeah. At the early days of the generation, they announced games like a Fable is coming. Yes, it was CGI, but hey, roadmap. Yeah. Avowed is coming. State of Decay 3 is coming. Hellblade 2 is coming. All these games are coming this gen, so you know exactly what you will get when you invest in the Xbox ecosystem this gen. We have no idea what Sony's up. We have no idea. And they've never been that quiet. I feel like, yeah, people know that I'm a fan of the brand. I'm not a fan of what Jim Ryan has done with PlayStation over the last 2.5, 3 years. Bad communication, straight out lies, you know. We believe in generations and things like that. I don't think that's a good thing. I also don't think when it comes to their marketing and especially to their like I said, roadmap, laying out, being transparent as a company. Just they've gone South Hill, man. They've gone South Hill with Jim Ryan. I want Sean Layden back. I want that. You know, I want that moment when they come out on stage and get us excited about God of War moment, you know, or like Ghost of Tsushima reveal and these kind of things. Those were epic. I want that back. Now they don't even bother to show up to E3. They barely show up at things like Gamescom. They have no showcase in is it now 18 months? Or they've been way too quiet, man. Way too quiet. Yes, they have released still consistent games. That's the only thing that they just did on a consistent base. They have released games, exclusives. That's good. But everything else kind of, yeah. I want them to do better there. So you're
that's
spot
my
on,
thing.
man.
That's my thing. Like the only thing we've got that we know of, and again, they've tried to be smart with it on a contractual basis because they've filled in the gaps that first party are missing by signing in exclusivity agreements with Square Enix for several Japanese RPGs.
Yeah.
But that doesn't fill the gap that is missing from any of the other studios, because as much as they like to consider JRPGs as a big draw, they're not. To the casuals, JRPGs are not a draw. They don't care about Final Fantasy. If you ask any regular casual, they'd much rather a Spider-Man or an Uncharted or something like that. Like those are games they play because those are games with relatable characters.
Yeah,
like the vast majority of casuals aren't going out and buying Final Fantasy. Trust us. You can
Yeah.
go into any secondhand store, and Final Fantasy be one of the cheapest secondhand games you'll find on the shelf. No one really cares about them. Only the old Final Fantasies are the ones that retain their price. The old ones.
Yeah, I feel
Final Fantasy is not
that's a genre for the hardcore gamers, and it's important for us. I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy 16, but I agree. It's not for the casuals. The casuals is Spider-Man, it's a God of War. It's like an Uncharted, like you said, or Last of Us or something like that.
Games.
They have the pull. They have the pull.
Yeah,
I agree.
And these are things that we want. Like they've got stuff in the works. We know they do. It's physically impossible to have that as many studios as they have, and they've got around 20, and not have things lined up.
Yeah,
they've already said they've got 10 games as a service games. Like that's not including anything else. We've got factions somewhere whatever the hell is happening there. We've got Corey's next game that isn't related to God of War.
Yeah.
We've got Neil Druckmann's next game. We've got Naughty Dog saying that they're not doing an Uncharted. Their next game's something different.
Yeah.
So there is stuff in the works. We just don't know what it is, and Sony aren't being
Bend
transparent
Studios.
about it.
We still don't know what Bend Studios are working on. We know it's not Days Gone 2. It's something else. Will we get a Ghost of Tsushima too? We don't know, man. We don't know, and I want to know.
Like, it's been a good start for PlayStation. They've had a lot of good games released, but they only hold you over for so long, and you need to start having a pipeline of games to show off.
Yeah.
For what is going to be like, what can I expect to play outside of Spider-Man? I'm not including Final Fantasy or Square Enix games because, again, as a market niche, the Final Fantasy brand is niche.
Yes.
It isn't for the casuals. It's not for everybody. Like this Final Fantasy in itself, Final Fantasy 16's completely lost me anyway. It doesn't have a party system. It's no longer a turn-based RPG. Like they completely ditched that. It's now more akin to like Devil May Cry and an action kind of an action game than it is an RPG. So Final Fantasy is no longer an RPG anymore. It's just an action game.
Yeah, true.
So it's like I don't. So that's lost me anyway. So any excitement that I did have for a Final Fantasy is gone. There's no guarantees that Final Fantasy VII Part 2 is coming out this year. Forspoken really didn't do anything. It missed the mark significantly. So then you're left with Spider-Man.
Yes.
And I wasn't the biggest fan of Spider-Man, but having played Spider-Man on the PlayStation now, it's probably will end up picking it up. But there's nothing else there to look forward to. For the casual gamer on PlayStation, like there's nothing from Sony this year.
Like, yeah, man, I am.
And people like the hardcore keep going, oh, well, Stellar Blade's releasing. Right? Stellar Blade will not be a commercial success. I'm sorry, it's not going to be.
Nah, it's not. I mean, if you count these kind of games, like every platform has so many of them. Every month
but
one or two.
Even as much as we loved Hi-Fi Rush. We absolutely adored Hi-Fi Rush.
Absolutely.
2 million people played it.
Which is
Great
insane.
Success.
Yeah.
However, if you go and speak to anybody and say the word Hi-Fi Rush, they'll be like, what?
Yeah.
What is that?
What is that?
What is it?
Yeah.
It's this cartoon game that you play to the beat. Not interested.
We have to admit it. 2 million players is great. 2 million players, especially without any marketing or whatsoever. It's
massive success.
Massive success. But it's less than 10% of the Game Pass subscribers, and I would dare say that even the Game Pass subscribers are like more or less already the hardcore fan base. I'm not sure how many casuals actually have subscribed.
I would say a lot.
Probably a good amount, but you know what I mean. So I fully agree with what you said, man. I fully agree. It's not a system seller. Yeah, I always say those games we consider system sellers are the games that cater to the casual audience, and that's what. That's what I meant earlier when we talked. Minecraft Legends is not that system seller, even though it's a massive success. But no one is going to buy an Xbox for that because they can also play it on PC. They can play it on, of course, PlayStation or on their Switch and whatsoever. So it's not a system seller. The system sellers are like your Starfields. That's a system seller.
Your Spider-Mans, your Ghost of Tsushima.
Exactly.
Yeah. God of Wars, your Uncharted.
Exactly. Maybe your Hellblades then. So yeah. Now you're gone. I'm not sure whether Dutch is the problem or I. You back?
I'm back again. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're back, man. I was not sure whether you were the problem or I. So
I had to, even though it was unmuted on my side, I think for some reason StreamYard had me down as muted, so I unmuted and muted again. So
Things happen,
No,
man.
I was
Things
just
happen.
saying, Final Fantasy is not a system seller. As
I
much as
agree.
people
It's
might
not.
like that game,
It.
it's not shifting.
It's
It's
not.
not shifting you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
It
not.
was. It was once upon a time. Once upon a time, Final Fantasy would shift your PlayStation 1 or your Nintendo, but Final Fantasy doesn't do that anymore. It's just part of because gaming has outgrowing its niche area.
Yeah.
Console gaming and video gaming used to be a niche thing, so people would buy ultra niche games or C games and they'd buy a console for these games because it was new then. Console
Yeah.
gaming and gaming in general is not new now. Console
Yeah.
gaming and is now a casual thing. It is a normal thing to do. Back when gaming first came out and Final
I
Fantasy was
agree.
uber popular, gaming was still very limited
Yeah.
in its draw. It was such a little thing to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you had like 2 major game releases a year.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah.
that's really
And you'd save up all year for it.
and you know that's actually how E3 started. Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
this conference for this event for retail sellers. They went there to learn what they will be able to sell this holiday. That's how E3 started. Yeah. I want to bring up a fantastic point from Red Gray in the chat, man. Shout out to you, brother, because you're spot on. We need to stop with Xbox. We need to stop calling it console or system sellers. It's more like subscription sellers. That's true. True. It's a subscription seller game. So yeah, Forza might be that game. But then racing games are everywhere. You have third parties, multiple great racing games there. You have except Nintendo. Sony has Gran Turismo, and while I don't think that that Forza and Gran Turismo will be on at the same level, I feel like at least the masses, okay, if I want to play a racer, I have the option for that as well there. But yeah, I get. Forza might be a subscription seller. I don't know about Redfall. Would you consider Redfall a subscription seller?
It's hard because it's a new IP.
Yeah.
And Arcane, as much as we know Arcane, the general public don't. So
yeah.
I would still say no, as much as we're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
The general public have no idea what it is, or I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
So
and the difference really is like with for Starfield.
Marketing for it.
Yeah. And that's Xbox. What do they market? And so always I have to smile sometimes when people say, "Oh, they need lead time for Starfield. They can shadow drop it because we have to market. They have to market it." But whenever have we seen a marketing campaign for an Xbox game? I don't.
Yeah, like I can guarantee. I turned on the TV. Most channels on the TV in the UK. And there's that brand new Sony advert out now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Spider-Man, you will see it everywhere. Billboards, buses, everything.
That new viral TV ad they've got, which I've forgotten the name of it now, but it's on pretty much all of the time now. And that's marketing. That's how you get the name about. And there's nothing for Microsoft. There's like one. I'll be lucky if I see one Xbox advert a week, or maybe even a month.
I honestly can't remember seeing one. Not one.
Even I know in Germany it's even worse.
Yes. So let's not talk about that again. Let's talk because we are almost 3 hours and 10 minutes already into the show, man. We have to get to some community questions before we hit the 4-hour mark, dude. So let's talk about community questions. All right. 3 hours and 10 minutes into the show, and we are getting started with the community question, Dutch. The first one comes in from Steve, aka XBOX. He asks this question: what 5 features make a video game good in your opinion?
Depends on the game type. But primarily, if we're just going on anything with actual characters and not like sports games, for instance, but if we're going for like a regular video game that the general public would play, you need, first of all, gameplay needs to be on point. That's the
Yes,
first
absolutely.
and most
I agree there.
important feature
Gameplay,
every time.
gameplay above all.
Gameplay is king.
Yeah.
Gameplay is absolute king. I would second to that, I would put soundtrack personally. I think having a brilliant soundtrack enhances the core gameplay.
Yeah.
And really pushes the story forward.
I would agree. I'm not sure if I would put it in second place, maybe
I would
third.
put maybe third after story.
Yeah, story slash characters, like, you know, this. Yeah.
Yeah. Story slash character slash acting. Like,
yeah.
Gameplay, story, characters, acting, soundtrack. Those three orders. Then we're talking about graphics. Resolution.
I would put graphics even in fifth place. Honestly.
Yeah. Performance would be fourth.
Performance? I would put that under graphics, like graphics and performance. I would put on number 4. I would probably put like, what's a good way to describe it? Like immersion. You know, how much does a like how much does a game pull you into its world, into the the level design, into.
See, I would put the immersion more into the story building, because the world's going to have to be built around the story anyway. So story building in the soundtrack, because there's been a lot of games that have been what would have been like a great game have been turned into phenomenal games because of the soundtrack. It's certainly very interesting. But I would always put kind of the graphics as probably one of the last ones.
That
agree. Makes no difference, because it depends on the art style you're going for, and the type of game that you're going for, and things like that. But always gameplay first, story second. For me, soundtrack third, because I think an unbelievable soundtrack would really enhance the core story elements and things like that. And again, part of the immersion.
And it sticks with you. Yeah.
Exactly. And we know that. I mean, if you have a look at the soundtrack for like Ori, for instance, was absolutely phenomenal.
Dude,
and then even if you have a look at like different types of games, Hi-Fi Rush, it had the perfect soundtrack to it that really enhanced that game. Like certain beats went with certain levels to make it feel like awesome. Like I'll still remember, like fresh in my mind, the first time you do the raid on the tower and Invaders Must Die comes on. And I was like, this is like the perfect mix. Like you're crashing into towers, and then like Invaders Must Die, as in you are the invader and they want to kill you. So I was like, it's perfect integration of where a soundtrack meets gameplay, meets the story. It all melds together to make a really memorable little experience. That's what I love about it. And again, you can talk about how the really powerful soundtrack in A Plague Tale Requiem mixed in with the story and the acting. Like all of that merged together to create a really unforgettable experience.
Agree.
Hellblade, exactly the same, but it did it in a different way, because it had a soundtrack, but the soundtrack was mostly the voices.
The voices, the binaural audio is the technology called, man.
So that's key. So I would, even if you want to say soundtrack / audio, I would kind of put into the same bracket. Like audio and soundtrack need to be like on point. And then kind of always last graphics. It makes no difference. Like if we have a look at at the fun fact that ended up being Vampire Survivors that took the world by storm, that had 0 graphics. It was like a little pixel art game that you could design like in 1980.
Yeah.
And look how good that ended up being, and how many people loved that game. And
crazy,
it was
right?
The most basic thing. But it
exactly.
had an awesome little gameplay loop. It had really cool soundtrack. It was fun. It was immersive. And then, of course, at the very end, you had the graphics, which made no impact on how popular that game was.
That's the thing. You know, Octopath Traveler 2 is out. Like, definitely and it has a certain aesthetic to it, but it's not. And I loved the first one. I put 85 hours or so into it. Graphics not important, man. Graphics are not are nice. They are nice. It depends. I don't want to downplay graphics too much because there are games out there, I no doubt, where like the great graphics enhance the immersion. Like if you play a Last of Us, think about you play a Last of Us. You take the same story, the same basic level design, and you put it in an ugly ass pixel look and have like no voice acting but written text. It would be in its core the same story and everything, and would not even be close to be as popular as it would be because is now, because graphics can help the immersion, can make games believable. It can make like set the mood properly and everything. So it's not that graphics are not important, and performance definitely goes right in hand with gameplay. Like if you have to play your games at 20 FPS these days, they are not fun, man. You can have a great mechanic. They are not fun at 20 FPS. So good performance and graphics, they can help a game out. But I do agree, in general, I would say like gameplay, like story, immersion, character building, things like that. Second, then of course audio helps that a lot. I would agree if someone would just exchange it and say, okay, come on, number 5 here doesn't mean it's not important. That's what I wanted to say, man. That's what I wanted to say.
Of course. You've got to be fair, they're only the first main 5. Then after that, you've got things like, okay, then we can add, looking at like really adverse 3D audio after that, or then we look at additions of peripheral implementations, so
controls,
features,
controls, UI is also plays a big role these days.
Yeah, so all of that stuff is like at the back, but there's a lot more that goes into it. But those are the definite top 5 that you need to have to make a game, to make it the kind of best game.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, and gameplay is always first. Character and story is always second.
Yeah. Absolutely. So let us see here. Ninja Scroll writes in and says, how many stars will you have visited in the first 2 weeks of Starfield? And what aspect? Okay, how many stars will you have visited in Starfield in the first 2 weeks? And what aspect do you look forward to the most within the game?
Shipbuilding, I think, like everybody else. I think everybody wants to just build the best one ever. And everyone's got these ideas of what like famous ships they want to build, like whether it be the Millennium Falcon or the Death Star or the Red Dwarf or whatever it is that you want to build. Like, everyone's got this like famous TV show, or maybe it's a Star Trek Enterprise or the Borg Cube, whatever it is. It's going to be, I think that's going to be one of the major things that people will be spending a lot of time on. And I'll definitely be doing the same thing, like bases, shipbuilding. I'm going to really enjoy doing all of that and building colonies on different planets and things like that if I can, or different bases in different areas. I want to know whether or not maybe you can use like multiple different ships. If you've got a base, whether or not you have like maybe you could have a smaller ship and you can build another ship, or you can have a kind of collection of ships. Like, there's loads of things I'd love for them to implement, but we'll see what happens. But they've always had really weird offshoot stories and loads of different stories, so I'm not concerned about the way that they do the game in that sense. The thing I'm looking forward to the most is mainly just the exploration and the shipbuilding. Those are specifically when you're talking about it. Like, I'm going to have, and this is a personal thing, I'm going to have I'm gonna have the Interstellar soundtrack playing in the background when I'm playing this game. 100%.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because I know that they will have an amazing soundtrack within the game.
Absolutely. I'm gonna enjoy those first, but I'm definitely gonna have the Interstellar soundtrack at some point playing in the background.
Makes sense, man. Absolutely. While flying through space or even while exploring, makes sense. For me, it would be like exploration is definitely one part, but me, like, that's what I look forward to the most, is like really get down to understand the ins and outs of the RPG mechanics, like how to level your character to get like OP really early in the game, not by grinding out the character, but just to spend the points basically in the right spots. I love that aspect. So Bethesda RPGs are super deep, of course, with their RPG system if you want to do them right, and so I'm looking forward to that. And of course, I want to see, like, in my head, I don't know what Starfield really is. Is it gonna be like this super overwhelming universe where you have like, oh shit, I have no idea what to do next, and I can fly there and there and there and explore 1,000 planets and then accidentally stumble upon the next side quest I want to do? Or is it really like, how well is it in terms of like discoverability, not just of the main quest, but the side quests specifically? Yeah, because I have no doubt that they guide you through the main story, but how much is exploration satisfying? Not just in terms you finding like 3 super exotic stones on a certain planet, and with that you can craft something super cool, but more like, okay, do I find like quests and things easy, or is that something that is worth exploring that the planet's for? That's what I want to see. And so yeah, man, there's a lot to look forward with that. Also, I want to know what the story is gonna be like. So yeah, great question, Dutch. Last one of the day is also Starfield related.
Yes, go on then.
Starfield Direct is the same day as Xbox Games Showcase, both on June 11th. Are you guys a little worried that they put Starfield Direct after the Xbox E3 Showcase because they think the showcase could be lackluster?
Quite the opposite. For me, it's quite the opposite. I think the reason they've got Starfield after the showcase is because they've got a lot of new stuff to show in the showcase, and they don't want a game that they've already showcased several times over being in the showcase again. I think they know that's a separate thing. It's going to be a longer deep dive. It's good because it's its own show, as we already knew. It's going to be about 15, 20 minutes long at least, just for the Starfield showcase.
Yeah.
Which means that, and you don't want to have a 20-minute continuous cycle in a game showcase. We've had that previously in an Xbox showcase, and it really starts to flatten it out a bit. And like, you've got this like steady pacing. We had that a couple of years back. We had this awesome steady pacing from Microsoft where it was just game, 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 game. And at the very end, they did this really long-winded, as much as we enjoyed it, this really long-winded Forza Horizon 5 presentation on the same showcase. And it really just slowed the whole thing down to a grind instead of finishing with a boom. And I don't think they want to do that kind of thing again where they don't finish the showcase with a boom and they just end up spending like 10, 15 minutes on one thing.
Yeah.
So I think they want to have the showcase to showing new games, new content, release dates for things that might be coming out after Starfield or before Starfield. And let Starfield do the talking by itself.
I agree. I think like the main reason is it would take away from the pacing because they need like this 20-30 minutes of proper showing what Starfield actually is. Would reduce the pacing of the main show, but they also don't want to put it away from the E3 because it will gain traction. People are here anyway, so they might just stay as well for a separate thing. And I think that's the main reason why they want to do it there. They hope they will get more views. And speaking of more views, Dutch, we need to bring this show to an end because the Capcom showcase is about to start and people want to see that. So we don't want to keep them for too long. It's been an absolute blast. 3.5 hour podcast always means it's been a blast. So let me shout out, of course, before I get to you, the more than 130 concurrent live views we had here today, which is fantastic. Big shout out to everyone who tuned in. Thank you so much. Big shout out, of course, to the super chats and the channel members. That support is truly appreciated and helps a lot. Thank you guys so much. But Dutch, let everyone know where they can find you and what you've coming up, man.
Definitely. So, of course, we had a break this week. That's mainly because I hadn't had a chance to catch up with the news after coming back from Netherlands. So, we're back again next week, but we're also back again on Sunday for the weekend edition, which is the first in a few weeks. So we'll be covering quite a few things there. I've also created a new look for the weekend edition myself. So it's a nice new animated overlay that's more in line with the regular midweek mix-up show. So kind of a little bit more uniformed again, but just as smart. So yes, that'll be back again at 7 o'clock so at 7 p.m. UK time on Sunday, 8 p.m. of course in Europe, and that is again 2 p.m. Eastern for the Americans there. So yes, other than that, back again next Wednesday for the midweek mix-up, and next Tuesday for the Save Tuesdays podcast.
I'm looking forward to, and of course,
yeah, I was going to say, starting to build up this month to the Community Indie Showcase next month.
Ooh, we're excited. Exciting times, man. Oh yeah, it's that time of the year, my favorite time of the year.
Yes.
The Indie Showcase. By wondering, that's awesome stuff. Awesome stuff there. And I cannot wait to see the overlay for the midweek mix-up podcast. Or the Sunday special edition. And the last super chat comes in of the day from Pyromad, who is a channel member for 3 months, man. Thank you so much. He says, great show. What little I caught. Will catch the beginning later. Have a great night, Boxenberger and Wandering Dutch. Thank you, man, for stepping by. You have an awesome day. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone who tuned in. Next week, we will be back. Same time, same place. Hopefully a great new guest. If not, it's still a fantastic show as always. So it's going to be a fun one next week. And other than that, guys, don't forget to game on.